Hello. Hi, chat. How's it going? Oh, we're not watching Thanksgiving right now. Let me hide that. And, that you don't... that wasn't there. Hi. How's it going? Let me just get everything opened up here really fast. Oh. How are you guys? How was Thanksgiving? Did everyone have a good Thanksgiving? Okay. Good, we're offline. Okay. Oh, fuck you. Oh my god, I have to update. Oh, that's bullshit. Bro, I swear to god. I don't want to update, asshole. It happened. Fair. Yeah. Yes, that is a dog and a cat. We have the Pupils. And we have the Munchie. My Thanksgiving was good. I wish I ate more, but my stomach was not cooperating with me. Because I was kind of car sick. But, got to see all my family, so that was nice. Got to hang out with them. That's always fun. I like my family, so always nice. Bro, I swear, if this shit's broken, I'm gonna be pissed. This better not have broken my mods. We'll see, we'll see, we'll see. But yeah, so we'll play for a little bit. I'm gonna do an after hours stream today, like an actual after hours stream. So I have to get off stream at like oh my god, they're doing more events. Great. Okay, looks like everything's working. Okay. No, we're not watching Thanksgiving right now. It never wants to select the game. I feel like we were building something last time, right? Well, hello, welcome. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Thank you. Died it a few days ago. Okay, we're working on Willow Creek. I forget, did we finish this? Did we finish that? Also, Kitty scratched me earlier and it itches so fucking bad. Did we finish you? No, I don't think we did. Nope, we definitely did not. Lol. Alright, well, that's fine. We'll work on that. That'll be fun. Right. We did this. Okay, we need a game, a musical instrument, and a stereo still. Okay. Alright. Alright, well, that's what we'll work on. Cool. Which did you think would never be a thing? I know, it's been a minute since I played The Sims on this computer. My brain is adjusted to my save file on my other computer. And I've been building a bunch of stuff in that, and oh wait, hold up. Anyway, I am having Sprite Cranberry because they sell it at Fred Meyer. Okay, what should we listen to while we're building? It's gonna be a chill stream. We build, we brain rot. It was Thanksgiving. Who has energy? Everyone's dead today. Bro, I watched an interesting movie the other day. I feel like I want to watch it with you guys. Not on YouTube, obviously, but on Fansly. But it's called The Tale, I think is what it's called. We have so many movies to watch, though. Like, oh my god. We have to finish Dollhouse today, and then I think I want to compare the two trans movies that I wanted to compare. Yeah. Rip. I feel like you can still eat the food, though. Exactly, Lemon. Let's see. It's 3:47. 4:47. 5:47. So almost 3 hours of stream. Okay, I can either find a very long video or a few of them. Okay, this video that was posted 7 days ago, that just came up in my recommended, the day I realized I was in a cult. It's an hour and a half. I feel like let's do that. Let's do that. I will link you.
This video is my experience.
Bitch, hold up. Hold up. We gotta sync up here. Right? I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's listen. But oh my god, Chad, I'm finally not sick anymore. Ugh, so happy. So fucking happy. Like, you have no idea. I was suffering. Alright, interesting, Lemon. Okay, let me change the title. The day I realized I was in ugh, fucking cat hair in my eye. Okay, that's not ideal. Yeah. Yep. Right, I always like hearing the first-hand stories of people who have left cults. It's really fascinating. Alright. And I will put the timer up so we can shrink it. If it loads. Oh my god. Okay. Alright. Everyone got it pulled up? Charge my iPad. It's gonna fucking die here. Turn it down slightly because it's kind of loud. Ah, that makes sense. Dude, I almost got, well, no. Let me rephrase. Some bitch tried to approach me at the store to try to recruit me into like some weird fucking cult when I was like hanging out with my friend. We were just like buying groceries. This was like 8 years ago or something. Oh my god. We like immediately knew what was going on because we're not dumbasses, obviously. And it was, dude, it was so fucking funny. She like came up, she tried to hand us something, and then she started, I literally don't even remember what she was talking about. I think I like dissociated because it was so fucking bizarre that, and I like not like actually dissociated, but like in a joke. I dissociated. My brain went blank because I was just like, oh, this is happening right now. Oh, she's crazy. All right, bet. And so like we just like egged her the fuck on so she would tell us all of everything. And she gave us some like fucking pamphlet, and it was so fucking funny. We were trying so hard not to laugh. We were both just like, you know, like when you're like with your friends or whatever and you're just like like that type of shit because something's happening and you're gonna fucking talk about it later. Yeah, we were doing that shit, like, because there was like one of us was holding like the basket and we kept like bumping it into each other like, bitch, like, are you seeing this shit? It was so fucking funny. Ugh. It was really funny. But yeah, it was just like some old lady. We thought at first she was coming up to ask us like where something in the store was. Because old people fucking do that. I don't know why people always, like, maybe I look like an employee of things because people bitch always come up and ask me what aisle shit's at. Like, do I just have like a retail face? That makes sense, I guess. But like, come on. Come on. That or maybe I just seem approachable. You don't know what a cult is? How to explain? A cult is a group of people, generally religious or some other type of spirituality connected to it. There's usually a person, either a literal person who is the figurehead, or like a spiritual person that they like look to, and someone else is like speaking, they're speaking through that person, so that person's the figurehead. Either way, there's always a figurehead, and then they recruit people and isolate them from their friends and families so that they can either abuse them for money, abuse them for labor, abuse them for some type of sex cult shit, sex deviancy, whatever the fuck. It's essentially like grooming on a grand scale for like a, does not matter the age. So they also sometimes will use drugs, or they'll use drugs, alcohol, or religion to manipulate people. They'll also like separate kids from their parents and other things to keep families separate from each other so that they don't like leave. Yeah, that's a cult. Sometimes the cults will, their goal is that there's like the end of the world is coming, and so they have to like take themselves out, or if they take themselves out at a certain time, they'll like ascend in some way. That's a doomsday cult. There's a bunch of different types of cults, but I feel like that's as good of an overview of what a cult is as I can do. Does that explain it? It's really fucking crazy, and it's super manipulative, and sometimes they're very subtle. They always pick on people who are vulnerable. So people who have recently like been kicked out of a church, they've been kicked out of their family, they're having marital issues, they're having relationship problems, they're down on their luck money wise, they just don't know like a direction in life, or they're seeking spiritual guidance. Some people who are in those situations, or people who are like fighting terminal illnesses, things like that, sometimes can be preyed upon. A lot of kids are preyed upon in cults because kids are already vulnerable. Same with older people. They'll do it for like a lot of homeless people will also be recruited into cults because they don't have a lot of other options, things like that. They'll just seek out vulnerable people in general. Yeah. Brandon is fucking crazy. Yep, it is the one who did the sarin attack. It's unhinged. Yep, exactly, Kiz. Exactly. Yeah, Scientology is a good example of a cult. Mormonism, I would argue, is a cult, but you know. I'm gonna also argue the Amish are bordering on cult-like activity. Latter-day Saints, absolutely cultish. Yeah, that type of thing. There's a lot of like Christian cults, but not all Christianity is technically a cult, even though I'd say it's cult light, but whatever. A lot of religion in general is like very parallel to what a cult is doing. It's just like they're not isolating you as much, sometimes. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna blow my nose, so I'm gonna mute you guys, and then we'll start the video. My allergies are super bad right now. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm not religious. I'm agnostic. Like, maybe there's something. Nothing's been proven to me though. And I kind of like to base stuff on things I have seen. And I have not seen proof of any religion being anything other than a form to manipulate people into doing what you want. And some people use it as community. That's, I feel like, the good version of religion is people who are using it as a community and to, like, help thy neighbor. But, you know, most people aren't doing that, so. Lol. Wait, cult is not something that shot metal object out of that people call like a 44 or 357? Lol. Funny. But yep. Anyway, alright, let's start this. Okay? Play on play. I will do a 3, 2, 1 play countdown. Play on play. Alright? 3, 2, 1 play. Oh shit. My video just it didn't play. I clicked the thing. Okay, sorry. Go back. Reset. I didn't do that. Here. I'll link again. Okay. God damn it. Yum. I want cookies. Alright. 3, 2, 1 play. Oh my god, it did it again.
This video is my experience going through a more...
Man, what the fuck is going on with my fucking iPad? It is like not registering when I hit it. Okay. 3, 2, 1 play.
Temple for the very first time,
Ha.
and how it made me realize that
Wait, I didn't go back. I'm a dumbass. Hold on. No. Dude, I can't even. I can't. Okay. We got this. Okay. 3, 2, 1 play.
This video is my
That was the first try. Shut up.
Mormon temple for the very first time.
Okay, we're gonna play.
It made me realize that I was in a cult. I don't really like to use the word cult purely because when you use that word, people stop listening to anything you have to say. But based on what I'm going to do for the thumbnail of this video, I guess if you're an active member who's questioning or
I didn't do any
curious,
Black Friday
you've gotten
shopping.
this far, maybe the word cult will not be enough to scare you off.
Here, let me turn it
I
up.
felt tremendously betrayed by the temple because I was brought up to believe that it was the house of the Lord, the most sacred place on the planet, and I went into my endowment and initiatory expecting it to be the most
That is like
significant
peak
spiritual
cult right there.
experience of my
Goddamn.
life. And so
Goddamn.
The highest
I
of
want to put a fireplace
expectations
out here.
to experiencing what was a very culty, scary, intimidating, and messed up and sexist, etc., ceremony was very frustrating, and I felt very betrayed by it. I think going through this with the handshakes
like an outdoor
and the prayer
fireplace.
circle and the embracing someone through a veil and going through all of this and then being asked to wear underwear that represented everything I had just experienced, and not just wear that underwear occasionally, but wear it all the time, day and night for the rest of my life, felt
Excuse
to me
you?
to be such a slap in the face. I also feel that the sense of betrayal comes from how deceptive the temple is to me as
what?
an ex-member. The fact that I was raised in the church and spent hours and hours of my life dedicated to seminary, youth activities, Sunday worship, girls' camp, I could go on, and to have dedicated so much time to the church.
Okay, so
and
this can
have
be a little
no
area.
idea what happens in a Mormon temple, despite it being the very heart of Mormonism. The Mormon temple is the heart of Mormonism. That felt deceptive to me. And when I served a Mormon mission and I'd gone through the ceremony and I was teaching people while wearing the garments and knowing that I would not be telling them at all any specificity as to what happens in the temple, I felt then that I was participating in the deception. I was participating in the lie. I was asking people to get baptized, give tithing, get their kids baptized, become fully fledged members of the church, and to do all of that without any comprehension of what happens in a Mormon temple, and without letting that person know at all, hey, this is real
already
Mormonism. This is what's at the heart of Mormonism. This is what everything in Mormonism is designed to pull you towards. Is not just, Jesus. It's not just, oh, we're singing worship songs. It's not just, this is about community. It's about prayer circles. It's about standing at a veil. It's about secret underwear. It's about a culty ceremony where you learn secret handshakes.
The secret underwear, I can't.
Names, and that's the heart of Mormonism. That's what everything is designed to lead you
I didn't know that part. How did I not know that part?
Specifically my experiences going through the temple for the very first time, so it's going to be mostly me telling my story, my personal experiences, but I'll also be mixing in some of the explanation as to what all of this meant. The first time you go, you really don't
area
know what
right
to
here,
expect.
I think, so I'll put like a stereo or something.
At all, besides the fact that it's important and sacred. So to list all of the things that happen in a Mormon temple, because there are several different ceremonies. There is the baptisms for the dead, which you begin to do at age 12.
Let me just get a stereo.
Washing and anointing and the endowment. Those are two separate ceremonies that happen on the same day. And those you either do before you get married or before you serve a mission. So if you got married, specifically Utah, allows you to get married as young as 16. So 16 is the youngest someone might be doing these ceremonies. Most people get married at 18 or older, and men serve Mormon missions at 18, women serve Mormon missions at age 19, and so all of these ages are approximately the time when most people experience these ceremonies for the first time as active members. You can participate in these ceremonies without getting married or going on a mission, but that's much less common. The next ceremony that happens in a Mormon temple is a wedding, and weddings are believed to be the only way to ensure you are with your spouse in the afterlife and your children. So Mormons believe that civil marriages, when you die, you are disconnected from that person, and in heaven you're just kind of an angel. But if you are sealed to someone, if you are sealed in the temple, it's called sealed. If you're married in the temple, then you are with them in the afterlife. You're also sealed. You're connected with your children in the afterlife. And the temple is the only place on earth, according to Mormon belief, where that is possible. I was 24 when I got married, and so at 24 is when I experienced the marriage temple ceremony for the first time. The final ceremony that happens in a Mormon temple is known as the second anointing. This is reserved for basically the highest level members of the Mormon church, the highest levels of leadership. Not only do you have to be in leadership, it also only typically happens to people who are in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. And so I never experienced the second anointing. I do have a whole video about it, but I won't be sharing any personal experiences about it today because I never went through the ceremony myself. I'm going to go a tiny bit out of order with those ceremonies purely because the initiatory and the endowment are kind of the centerpiece of the temple. It's the part that you attend the most often. It's the part that's kind of the most important, in my opinion. All of the other ceremonies hitch their wagon to the endowment and the washing and anointing specifically, and so that's what I'm going to start with, and then I'll talk about the other ceremonies after I finish my explanation of that. In every room in my home growing up, we had a photo of the temple. That was a really important part of the layout of our home. I don't think every family had this necessarily, but in my home we had a picture of the temple in every room. In my opinion, I think this was kind of a way to always have the temple in the hearts of my family, a way to show just how important the temple was to my family specifically. I have so many journal entries growing up, even before I turned 12, of me talking about my excitement surrounding the temple. In this journal entry from 2005,
is this standing or does this need a chair?
My first temple trip, I really want to go. My first trip will be to the Houston temple, but my second one will be to the San Antonio temple. The pictures below are of the San Antonio temple. I got them today in a pamphlet which I got from church. I wrote to the side here, the spirit was strong.
Dude,
here I
the
wrote
Mormons
the
scare me.
Font where I will perform baptisms. You can see I've chosen to include a photo of Jesus and a photo of the baptism baptismal font. On the next page of my journal, I have 2 more.
Because, like, why do they have their kids doing this?
My journals are honestly completely full of entries like this, and I've read some of them on my Patreon. In this entry, I talk about visiting the Temple of the Community of Christ. Community of Christ used to be called the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Cool.
So they're a break-off group, essentially, from Joseph Smith's original church. And they have a temple, and you're allowed to go inside their temple. And it's so funny to me how much you can see how the indoctrination of how this church was the bad church gets through in my journal entry. I say next to LDS Visitor Center was the Reformed Church Temple, in quotes. It was all swerved and weird, and it looked evil and swerved. I will put a picture in here after I took a really good one.
What?
I didn't get that one printed. We took a tour of it, and it was awkward. They pretty much don't believe in anything. Their little pamphlet that we got says, "We believe that one's moral beliefs take precedent and unity," which I'm not really sure what I even meant by including that quote. Weird. It didn't feel very spiritual. It's so ironic that I went to this break-off group's church, and I remember the entire time my family essentially saying, "This place is evil, this is a bastardization of the truth of Jesus Christ." And so reading this really, I think, shows the
karaoke over here
that I had for the real temple that was from the right version of Mormonism. This entire entry is about how my family went on a lot of religious pilgrimages to many different sites.
I want to put something on this wall. I don't know what, though.
That was a very common vacation for us. On this vacation, we went to Missouri, and we saw the jail where Joseph Smith was killed. You can tell from the level to which I wrote about this in my journal that this was an important and exciting time in my life. This is the journal of a teenage girl. It's just
no way.
People don't understand how much the church dominated my childhood. Anyways,
That's funny.
I also grew up singing the song, "I love to see the temple, I'm going there someday. I'll covenant with my father, I'll promise to obey." And it's the whole song is just about how much you're
the light leaving her eyes as she sings that.
The song is meant for children as young as primary age, 4, 5, 6, 7, just romanticizing the level to which the temple is this amazing, beautiful spiritual place. And so this was always held as just a beacon of goodness that I had to look forward to. It was held as this magical, beautiful, perfect place where God literally
benches right here
walked the halls, and that someday when I was older and I was worthy and I was faithful, I would have the privilege of going through the doors and finally seeing what the inside is like. As I said, my first entry point to the temple was doing baptisms for the dead. This is a belief where if someone passes on without having the beautiful opportunity of becoming Mormon themselves, you can baptize their souls in proxy, and then in the afterlife, they get to choose to accept that baptism. And I did these starting at 12. I'll talk about that in a bit. But I also did them from 12 onward into college. So part of my college experience was every Saturday, basically without fail, I would go with friends to go do baptisms for the dead in the Provo Temple. This would
I wonder if I can find calico
date
cat
nights,
ears.
This would be friend hangouts. The Provo Temple was always totally packed because it was full of all of these young Mormon kids who were taught, like I was, that the temple was the most important place on the planet. And so it was a huge part of BYU culture to go to the temple, usually to do baptisms for the dead, because if you didn't have the endowment ceremony yet, the baptisms for the dead were the only thing that you could go to the temple and participate in. And I literally used to brag when I'd be meeting a guy I would be interested in. I'd brag about how often I would go to the temple. In this book, I have a book of lists.
Jeez.
And among the lists, I have dream man musts. So these are qualities. This is a very common activity to write out all the qualities you want out of your future husband. And one of the things that makes the list is I wrote CTR, current temple recommend holder. And the ironic thing is I literally went back to this list to rewrite on a second page I just forgot that I had already written it, so it's actually appears twice on this list because I was thinking about it so much. So you're told you really should only date for marriage, right? You're not dating for fun, you're dating for marriage, and that you should only date people who have current temple recommends, because that is a sign that they are worthy of the temple, and temple worthiness is the most important thing someone can achieve. So if someone's a current temple recommend holder, they are worthy enough to be seen as a potential partner for marriage. I hate the word worthiness because it is so condescending to so many people. I'm sure that for most of the people watching this, you're not worthy to enter the temple. So if you drink coffee, you're not worthy to enter the temple. Premarital sex, not worthy to enter the temple.
Wait, we should do bingo.
Not worthy to enter the temple. Me, right now, I'm not worthy to enter the temple. So I consider myself to be a mostly good person. I'm a good mother. I'm a good wife. I like to believe I'm a fairly moral person, though not perfect. But I'm not worthy to enter the temple. I mean, part of that is also just baptism. So if you're not baptized, you're also not worthy to enter the temple. So there's this whole long list. But this word worthiness really conveys. I
unironically want to play bingo with that and see how many I hit.
To be worthy to enter the temple means that you're kind of better than everyone
Okay, I found
else.
calico cat ears.
I mean, just the word worthiness is a value judgment in my opinion. I also think the unintended effect of someone being temple worthy is to be temple worthy, you have to answer all these questions with your bishop. I've talked about this in previous videos. But if someone has a temple recommend, you mentally just think they're a good person as a member of the Mormon Church. Temple worthy, good person. And the truth is that a lot of people who are not good people, predators, abusers, etc., are still temple recommend holding members of the church. And so the bishop doesn't actually have any special insight into if someone is truly a good person or not. It's just that if they're answering those questions correctly. And so I know of cases where people have dated or married individuals who are actually kind of bad people, but because they have a temple recommend, they get a free pass on any further scrutiny purely because their bishop has declared them worthy.
That's crazy.
As you all know, I try to pack a ton of research into my videos every single week, and between researching, editing, filming, 2 kids, and my husband's busy job, life can feel really chaotic. Finding time to plan healthy meals can feel truly impossible, but when I don't have
I need
time
like a
to
small
grocery shop or
okay,
make
that's
an
not
extensive
fucking
list,
small.
I'm glad I have HelloFresh.
I need a small
As
that
the
works.
hustle picks up, I am all about finding easy, wholesome meals that don't break the bank.
Yes.
That's where HelloFresh comes in. Whether you're into vegetarian, calorie-smart, or protein-rich options, you can tailor each box to meet your needs. Plus, with pre-portioned ingredients, you're
spot
only
for the
paying
parents
for what
to
you need, which
sit.
cuts down on waste and
I feel like I should do
is the most important meal
something
of the day,
underneath
and right
that,
now,
like a
HelloFresh
carpet.
is putting a free breakfast item into every single box for life. Sometimes I feel like I get in a rut where I cook the same thing over and over again, and what I love about HelloFresh is that they offer 30 different calorie-smart and protein-rich options every week. This brings fresh ingredients and new flavors to your door every single week, and the free breakfast item lasts in your subscription for as long as you keep it. Click the link in the description or use my code to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. You can also scan this QR code off to the side here. You'll get 1 breakfast item per box while your subscription is active here in the US. Outside the US, a local discount will apply. Let's jump into the story of my very first experience in a Mormon temple. I'm also going to show you the clothing that I wore as part of that experience. I will get into it in a bit. The reason that I wanted to start dressed normally is sometimes it can be a bit of a shock.
The issue with this is I can't center it.
The clothing. That's not to say I don't often wear it in short form videos, but I figured I'd start dressed like this and then show you how the transformation takes place across the course of the endowment, so just we'll know that that is coming. When I did my first endowment, I was about to serve a mission. I was maybe 2 or 3 weeks away from my report date to the missionary training center, and I received my endowment in the Louisville, Kentucky temple. It's called receiving your endowment because you're basically getting it from heaven, I suppose. That's just one of those funny little Mormon terminologies that often come up when discussing this type of thing. I was, like I said, 20 years old, and I think it's one of the strange things about getting a little older, now I'm 32, is realizing that you were really young. When you're around 18, 19, or 20, you're old enough to be legally considered an adult. You're old enough to feel like you're an adult, but you're still young enough to be very malleable and easy to tell what to do. And I think that that's one of the reasons of many that this is the age where the endowment happens, the age where missions happen, the age where marriage happens, because you're basically just barely out of the house, and then you're immediately asked to commit to marriage, mission, babies, etc. And so if you're
we just need to do an area with
there's really no opportunity to go out and
what is
live
game
your life,
under?
explore the world. You're basically going from your hyper-religious
Girl,
home
where are games
into your religious marriage and your commitment in the endowment.
Well, let me do some music.
Etc. I feel that as soon as I was a little bit older, you know, I left the church around 24, 25. As soon as I was a little bit older and my brain was more developed, I feel like I left basically pretty quickly from the church. When we arrived at the temple, I was just with my parents.
My fiance
None of
get
my
me
siblings
burger.
were in attendance. My older sister at that point had experienced the temple endowment, but she was back in Utah. And my younger two siblings were not old enough because they hadn't served missions yet. They had never done what I was about to do. So it was just my parents, and that was it. Besides all
just
of
have
the
like
other
a
members
music
of the
room
Mormon Church
in general,
who
I
happened
think.
to attend the temple that day. It was just me and my parents. If you're enjoying this video, just a quick reminder to like this video, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to drop a comment about if you've had an experience in a Mormon temple, or if you have a question about anything I've shared. If you also click the little bell, you'll get notifications anytime I post a video basically every week about the Mormon Church, Mormon doctrine, Mormon history, temple, my experience being raised in the church, etc. As I share about my experience in the temple, I'll also try to put images and videos off to the side. Most of these will come from a YouTube channel called New Name Noah. He is an individual who's gone in and filmed a lot of what happens in a temple. I'll link it down below. So that's where a lot of this comes from. A lot of ex-members have either audio recorded or video recorded. This is available, the transcripts are available on websites, which I'll also link below. They do change the ceremony quite a bit, so I'm going to tell my experience based on what happened to me. But some of the elements have shifted a bit or updated a bit.
Might as well just put a bunch of different guitars and stuff so a bunch of different people can use this room.
Holy and eternal ceremony so that it's less offensive. So that's also kind of what's being reflected in the fact that some of what I will share has changed. In the temple, everything you wear is white, and so white and
literally
so
a
for
cult.
women,
Like
the dress you're
the most cult things you could do. Like, what is this?
Into my dress. When I went through for the first time, I wasn't wearing this dress specifically. I was wearing something called a white shield. Here's an approximation of what that looked like. Essentially, it's just this large poncho. But when I went to change into my garments before the ceremony took place, this was the first time I had ever unwrapped the garments. So before I went in, I went and purchased maybe enough, probably 7 to 10 sets, enough to last whatever amount of time before doing laundry. But I hadn't opened the bag, and I was expressly told, you know, don't open the bag, don't wear them, don't put them on until you do the washing and anointing ceremony. So I finally, you know, I had they come in these little pink baggies. I brought in my little pink baggies. They come in different fabrics. This is just one example of fabric. So I put the top and bottom on. I put the shield on over it, so I'm wearing 3 foreign pieces of clothing, so garments, shield, and then I stepped out of the stall and walked to the area of the temple where the washing and anointings take place. For this portion, I was not with my parents, I was not with anybody I had ever met before. It was 2 female temple workers, and they take you through 4 different stalls. At this point, I was just filled with basically just excitement. I was nervous because it was, you know, being asked to put on new underwear and step into a stall with 2 strangers is already scary, but I had a lot of trust that everything that was going to happen was going to be, like I said, the most wonderful spiritual experience of my life. So at this point, I was full of hope, full of excitement, and just fully ready to kind of receive whatever it was that was about to happen to me while I was in the walls of the temple. For the washing and anointing, you step through the stall, and it's sectioned into fourths, and as you first step in, you wait to be called in. So the first section of the 4 is just for waiting. The next is for the washing. So that's where they would put water on your head. They put water on my head and laid their hands on my head and essentially began to speak a blessing. Already this was a mind-blowing moment, because in the Mormon Church, a woman can never put her hands on someone's head except for in the temple, and I had no idea that happened in the temple. So growing up, I had seen all of these instances where men could give blessings, men could it's called the laying on of hands, and so I had always seen this to be something only men could do. So I have always thought of this as the only part of the temple I would enjoyed.
Heavily disagree that trans and drag people have respect in the Middle East.
My own mother or people I had met,
I don't think so.
But just the mere fact that there was an opportunity for a woman to do the physical action of putting hands on another woman's head was very exciting and very cool to me, and I felt like
it's
that
so
was
weird.
The only part where I felt like, wow, the temple is exactly what everyone
yeah,
said
I think
it
they
would
bless
be,
it or
that
some
it's this
shit.
really
I don't
cool
know.
thing that is unknown to me, and it's going to be really exciting. So I really enjoyed that one singular part where women finally had the ability, the privilege of putting their hands on a woman's head. To be clear, that never can happen. Even those same women, if those women that put their hands on my head, if they were to leave and go home and see their child was sick and try to do the same thing and say, I'm going to give you a blessing, they could be punished for that, excommunicated for that, saying that they had the power to do that. So it's not that they really have the priesthood, it's that they are able to exercise priesthood keys of the temple president while in the temple. I know that sounds like a technicality, but it's not that the women have the priesthood. They don't carry it with them in and out of the temple. It's only that they can do these specific prayers in these specific settings, not that they are given the priesthood in the way that men are. So I was really excited by that, and it honestly made me tear up a bit, because I always wanted the priesthood. So I had always wanted to pass the sacrament. I wanted to feel like an equal in the eyes of God and receive God's power. And so the fact that I was able to at least experience a tiny taste of something that I had always wanted was pretty cool. These are the words they said during the ceremony. For me, I just had water placed on my head, and then they gestured to the part of the body they were discussing or describing in the prayer. It used to be that they would physically touch the person during the prayer, so they bless the loins in this. So it used to be that when you were wearing this poncho, they would reach through the poncho and they would touch right above the loins and right above the breast as they were blessing those portions of the body. When I went through it, they just pointed. So they literally they gestured to my loins or my breast and my ears, my nose, etc. They used to touch the area. Now, from what I understand, they just, hands at their side, they just say the prayer. There's no gesturing, there's no touching. Essentially, they're taking away the most disfavorable parts of the ceremony that made people uncomfortable. Here is the prayer. I wash your head, that your brain and your intellect may be clear and active, your ears, that you will hear the word of the Lord, your eyes, that you may see clearly and discern between truth and error, your nose, that you may smell, that one always made me laugh, your lips, that you may never speak guile, your neck, that it may bear up your head properly, your shoulders, that they may bear the burdens that shall be placed thereon, your back, that there may be marrow in the bones and in the spine, your breast, that it may be the receptacle of pure and virtuous principles, your vitals and bowels, that they may be healthy and strong and perform their proper functions. That one also always made me laugh. Your arms and hands, that they may be strong and wield the sword of justice in defense of truth and virtue. Your loins, that you may be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. that you may have joy in your posterity, and your legs and feet, that you might run and not be weary, and walk and not faint. Which also made me laugh, because if they're blessing your legs and feet that you might run and not be weary, as someone who has run a lot in my life, I don't feel that these blessings were literally blessings. They're obviously supposed to be symbolic. I'm sure that there's been a Mormon member who got COVID and didn't have a sense of smell and thought to themselves, but in my initiatory they said that I should be able to smell with my nose. I was blessed for this, but you know, it's all just, I guess, symbolic. So that's the whole prayer, and then after they would say the prayer, and after they gestured at all of those parts of my body, then is when the woman put their hands on my head and said, "Having authority, we lay our hands upon your head and seal upon you this washing." So that's the washing part of that ceremony, and at this point I was still feeling fairly, you know, positively. I was still feeling like, okay, I'm enjoying it so far. And then after the washing, you go into the next stall, the next fourth, you know, the next section of the stall, and then you get the anointing. So they say the same prayer essentially over again, and they then put oil, basically this one they put oil and then say the prayer and then seal the blessing. So you were washed with water, you were anointed with oil, and then in the last quarter of the stall, you're going through these curtains. I know it sounds so crazy, but the last stall is where you receive your new name. So my new name was Ada, A-D-A-H.
Why do they give you a new name?
This is something that's supposed to be ultra secret. So you're never supposed to tell anyone your new name. You're only supposed to tell your future husband one day. But the husband, of course, never tells the wife his new name. He gets to keep it a secret from her, but she has to tell him her new name. But at this point, I was about to serve a mission. I hadn't even met my husband yet, so this was at this point just my special new name. I kind of liked my new name. My name's Alyssa, obviously, so Alyssa, Ada, A-A, you know, that worked for me. I didn't mind my new name. Some people really don't like their new name. You're told that the new name is supposed to be really special, and I remember feeling like my new name was really special, but unfortunately everyone who gets their temple endowment on the same day gets the same new name. This is my special piece of paper I got as part of my endowment.
What?
I went on June 6th, 2013, and
that's so weird.
So anybody who went on June 6th, 2013 has the name
not really
Ada
a secret then, huh?
And men get a different name, but it means that it's really not special. It just means that, just like many things in the temple, it's a conveyor belt and everybody's getting the same thing. It's not like, you know, I think in my head I thought that the temple president knew that, you know, okay, we have Alyssa Grenfell, she's coming through the temple today. Let's pray over her name. Let's get some inspiration, some little, you know, happy mojo up in here that's going to tell us, here's the name that God wants for her. That's, I think, in my head, what I imagined had happened. But no, it's just conveyor belt, everybody gets the same name depending on the day that they went through the temple. In the section where you get your new name is also where they talk about the garment. So they say, inasmuch as you do not defile it, but are true and faithful to your covenants, it will be a shield and a protection to you against the power of the destroyer until you have finished your work on the earth. So you are told that the reason to wear these, there's multiple reasons you're told throughout the temple, both the initiatory and the endowment, but one of the reasons they give is that it is a shield and a protection from evil. And so as part of this, growing up, I always heard stories about people being protected during car accidents or during other, you know, whatever, you know, boiling. There was stories like he was cooking and the boiling water got thrown across his body, and anywhere that the garment was touching, he was protected, but his, you know, beneath where the sleeve of the garment was, he was, you know, 3rd-degree burns or whatever, which by that logic you'd think, you know, garments would go down to your fingertips and we'd all be wearing like tiny, you know, completely covered in garments. But for, you know, it's not internally consistent. It's not really according to logic. It's just all mythology.
That's so fucking
it's all
funny.
just kind of made up nonsense. But anyways, so that was another part of wearing the garment. They tell you it's going to be a shield and a protection against the power of the destroyer, aka Satan. So that's my experience with the Initiatory.
Bruh.
And as I said, the Initiatory is connected to the endowment. So it's basically, in my recollection, almost immediate. Basically, as soon as you finish the Initiatory, you are hurried off to go do the endowment. So I changed out of my shield, I kept the garments on, I put on this dress, this is, the dress I changed into, and then I went to go sit in a room and wait for the endowment to start. At this point, I was still feeling pretty positively. I feel like maybe if I just had the washing and anointing and had gone home, that would have felt like
fun.
Enough for the day, and I could have processed it, but they really don't give you any chance to process it. You go straight into the endowment. I walk in, like I said, my parents are with me, so my dad is sitting with the men, my mom is sitting with me on the women's side. Usually, when I went at least, they make the person getting it for the first time sit in the front. And as I shared, anyone who's going through their own endowment, you actually get this physically pinned onto your dress. So it's not like you can be on the DL. Everybody knows it's your first time, and they have you sit in the front, and there are certain parts of the ceremony that they have you participate in, or that I participated in, and so you feel very much the eyes of the room on you, because everybody knows it's your first time, and everybody, I think, remembers their first time and how weird it is. And so I think that everybody kind of knows, oh, what we're about to do, we've all done 100, if not 1,000 times, but she's about to experience it for the first time. And some people actually do kind of freak out. I don't think anybody freaks out. I've never heard stories of people flipping the table and running away and screaming, but I've heard of crying, sobbing.
What are they doing?
Being afraid, being maybe getting through to the celestial room and hyperventilating and crying. I think there's a lot of repression of the anxieties and the disgust, the, kind of knee-jerk reaction of what the fuck that people have when they go through the temple. I'll also say I had no idea any of this was connected to Masonry, which now I've researched and read a lot about, and most of the ceremony is very much tied to what Masons do in Masonic temples. But when I was I wasn't raised in a family that did any Masonry or practiced Masonry or was a part of Masonry, and so I didn't recognize any of the through lines at all. To me, it just felt completely like its own bizarre foreign thing. When you first come in and you're divided by gender,
I feel like this needs like wall pads or something.
So this is an example of what that might look like. Essentially, it's
or something
that
looks like wall pads.
It's always made of white, of course. Everything has to be white in the temple. And basically, this is
sort of
where
does.
you'd be keeping all of your temple clothes that you're about to change into. Look, it's all popping out. Why do I still have this stuff? So this dress is one that I've had. This is the one I had when I was still a member of the church. I threw away all the other stuff because I found it to be something I did not want in my closet. I think a lot of members, when they fully leave and they fully stop believing, they throw it away. So that throwing it away is the most common thing I've heard people do. That's what I did. I just threw it into a dumpster and walked away and felt 1,000 pounds lighter. But I was then given this once I started doing these videos so that I could show, because I wanted to be able to show what it looks like. So that's why I still have it. So you're holding that little white packet, you're in your white dress, and a voice comes on over the stereo, and the entirety of what they say is all available online. There are multiple different transcripts of it, because like I said, they've changed the ceremony quite a bit. So one of the interesting things is just going through and seeing just how much has changed over the years. I'll link some of those scripts below. You can find more easily through Google. But a voice came on over the speaker, and the thing that it said first that I remember the most is, and I'll read the words because they were very scary to me at the time. If you proceed and receive your full endowment, you will be required to take upon yourself sacred obligations, the violation of which will bring upon you the judgment of God. For God will not be mocked. If any of you desire to withdraw, rather than accept these obligations of your own free will and choice, you may now make it known by raising your hand. Wow. I mean, that to me was, I feel like I was already quaking in my boots at that, because
now we need to
he's
just
saying,
do
you know,
game
you're about to be
and little
asked
activity
to make promises. You're going to be asked to take upon yourself
we
sacred obligations.
We have not done downstairs yet.
And if you violate those obligations, that
we haven't done anything
downstairs.
Cool,
God
cool.
Visited upon your head.
Okay,
So
let's do
you can leave now if you don't want
stuff
to do
up
that.
here.
The thing is, you don't know what the promises are yet. You don't know what you're going to be asked to do. You're just essentially blindly accepting. Before, it's like someone saying, like, will you do me a favor? Will you promise to do me a favor? And you're like, well, what's the favor? And you're like, nope, promise me first. And you're like, well, I can you tell me first? Because I don't want to agree to something that I don't even know what I'm agreeing to. That's kind of a basic, fundamental human understanding of making an agreement, is that you need to know what you're going to be agreeing to before you make the agreement. But they don't let you do that. So that was my first moment of feeling
little play
really
kitchen in here.
Anxious and queasy. Like, by sitting here, I'm consenting to something that I haven't been told what it is yet. So this is not informed consent, obviously. This is just sitting there looking at your parents and saying, okay, in your head, like, I literally thought in my head, I guess my parents wouldn't have me do this if they didn't believe it was going to be okay, and my parents have done this for years and years apparently, so I'm going to assume we're not going to be killing any baby goats.
We'll start with this.
Like that. After the voice says a few more things, when I went through, they showed a film. They're the lights go out and a projector shows a video. And the video is a depiction of Adam and Eve and God creating the earth with Adam. God creates the earth with Michael and with Jehovah, so it's Elohim, Jehovah, am I saying that weird? Jehovah, Elohim, Jehovah, and Michael. And they are all creating the earth. Once Michael comes down to the earth as Adam, we also see the creation of Eve. This is in my opinion, the first manifestation, well, not even the first manifestation of sexism, because obviously we already saw that women can only not have the priesthood, but have the priesthood in the temple. But we see Eve gets made from the rib of Adam. Adam gets to name Eve. Eve is said that she's going to be the mother of all, and Adam gets to be the lord of all, the ruler of all. So we already see the divide between the genders and the fact that one has more power and one is more of the eternal childbearing person. I already began to see, wow, look at this, all this blatant sexism in the temple, and it felt to me like such an obnoxious moment where already we're seeing instances, or we're meant to see ourselves as Eve and men are supposed to see themselves as Adam, and we consistently see Eve take second seat next to Adam, and Adam is the true ruler and the true priest and the true king, and Eve is there created specifically as a helpmeet and as a companion to the real leader in the room, which is Adam. Another thing that stood out to me when I went through the first time is that Satan, the character of Satan in the film, has a ton of lines. He's very present in the movie. So he comes to tempt Eve to eat the apple. He is later, when they're cast out of the Garden of Eden, he's kind of following them around. And the character of Satan, in my mind, had a much larger role in the temple film than Jesus. And I also found that to be strange. First of all, why is Satan in the temple to begin with? I'm raised on this idea that, as I had in my journal from when I was a child, that the temple is the house of the Lord. It says it on the door above when you enter, and it's something that's echoed constantly, is that the temple is the house of the Lord. And so the fact that Satan is so present, he has so many lines, he's, all throughout the temple, it just, to me, was strange. Why is Satan even in the temple to begin with?
Here we go.
Another point that this reminded me of is that in the temple, you can also swipe your credit card and rent temple clothing. So some people, when they're traveling, they don't want to carry all of this stuff around, so they will just go to the temple. They still want to go to the temple while they're traveling. Temple tourism is kind of a thing, so people will say, oh, we're going to such and such city. I've never been to the Las Vegas temple. Let's do a temple session while we're there. But they don't want to pack all of their temple stuff, so then they'll just rent their clothes. So ironically, you can buy things in the temple. There is an exchange of money, and if you are familiar at all with the Bible,
nice.
Jesus, that's like the one time Jesus gets pissed is when they are selling things in the Bible, and he brings out his whip, and and that's a story I heard growing up as a Mormon kid, because I still read the Bible. And so when we went through the temple for the first time, and I see for the first time, because when you do baptisms for the dead, I didn't see the counter where there's money being exchanged. When I went through with my parents, though, I saw people scanning their credit card and renting temple clothing, and I
a little blender.
Thinking, why is there money being exchanged in the temple? This is biblically, this is the one time in the Bible that Jesus truly gets angry. So Satan being so present in the ceremony was also, to me, very strange. There's sexism in the ceremony. There's a heavy influence of Satan in the ceremony. And to me, it's just, if this
so
is
weird.
Truly the most spiritual experience of my life, and this is truly the house of the Lord, why is there blatant sexism? And why is Satan so present in the ceremony? Why is he even here to begin with? One bone I'll throw the ceremony and Mormonism in general is that Eve is kind of seen as a heroine in Mormonism. She's the reason they left the Garden of Eden, which, because they left the Garden of Eden, that meant they could have children, which is why we're all here. And so the bone I'll throw
I'm fine with the
Mormonism is that, Eve is seen more as a leader in that regard. She was willing to do the hard thing, which was to eat the apple so that they could gain an understanding of good and bad. And basically, Eve is the reason, she kind of tipped off all of us coming to Earth. So she's portrayed more as somebody who made a hard decision, like, eating the fruit was a hard decision that she made so that mankind could progress, versus the evil whore that was the downfall, of original sin. Like
That's
I said,
interesting.
Jesus really doesn't show up in the film as much as you would expect. They've actually changed the ceremony so that Jesus is more front and center, and Jesus and the focus on Jesus is ironically something that the church has really pivoted to in the last 20 years or so. I found a graph, which I'll put here, which is basically mentions of Jesus in general conference. And you can see that Jesus Christ has become much more of a focus of Mormonism. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but it hasn't always been about Jesus as much as it currently is, and that they've changed the temple so that, when I went through, Jesus was not as present. And so when you're going into it, assuming it to be the house of the Lord, and then Satan is in the ceremony more than Jesus himself, you've got to start to just logically wonder why the ceremony is set up this way. One part that I actually found in my research for this is some of the sexism that has already been taken out of the temple. So here's a line that wasn't said during my ceremony, but was said previously. So the line was, "Eve, because thou hast hearkened to the voice of Satan, and hast partaken of the forbidden fruit, and given unto Adam, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception, and in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. Nevertheless, thou mayest be preserved in childbearing. Thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee in righteousness." So if I'm taking that as I think it's being written, basically, childbirth will be very, very painful for you, and it will bring you sorrow because of the pain, but because of your ability to have children, you'll still find joy. And so I didn't hear that line, but the idea that God cursed Eve with pain in childbirth is tremendously messed up. And it also makes me think that my comprehension of Eve as a heroine is probably just because I was born in the 90s, and that's probably not a message that a woman born in the 50s or 40s or 1890, that's probably not a message she would have shared. I'm still a product to some extent of the church's,
put random toys around
feminism and bowing a bit more to equal rights. So I think that my concept of Eve as a character is probably still heavily influenced by the decade that I was born into. Even though there was definitely still a lot of sexism even when I went through the temple, and still there still is to this day. Eve eats the apple and they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and this is the portion where you would put on your green apron. The green is meant to symbolize, essentially in the Bible it says that God gives them coats of skins to cover themselves with. You've probably seen in paintings of Adam and Eve getting cast out of the Garden of Eden. There's always
something on
the
the
fig
wall,
leaf,
though.
right? So this is carried through basically to this is what that's representative of. You put this on over your waist as a symbol of modesty. All right, I've moved back from the camera a little bit so you can still see my outfit a little bit easier. Essentially, during the process of Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden, basically they have this moment with God and Jesus where essentially Adam gets to covenant with God. There's this back and forth between Adam and God where Adam gets to covenant with God. Eve is just off to the side watching the conversation take place, and Adam's looking, head on at God. And when it shifts to being Eve's turn to covenant, she looks purposefully, in my memory, this is how it was, she looks at God and then turns to look at Adam. And then she says, I now covenant with you, Adam. Adam had this amazing opportunity to talk to God. God and Jesus, and then when it's Eve's turn,
what else can go on the wall? I wish I had more kitchen stuff, but it's fine.
And yet she still has to turn and covenant with a man, her husband. And this moment where men can talk to God and women can merely talk to man made me so frustrated, even during the temple ceremony. This obvious, blatant, doctrinal message that man can speak to God and woman can speak to her husband. And that was just, I've already mentioned some of the moments, like Eve being described as being created merely because it's bad for man to be alone and to be a companion. But, just seeing how consistently throughout the ceremony that it is reiterated that the woman is fundamentally a second-class citizen to her husband. She is second fiddle. He is the Lord. He is the king.
I want to find a
she is his companion. And
cupboard,
that just didn't live up to
this.
my dream for myself. I don't want to merely be a companion to the king. I would like to be a king myself, personally. I would like to have access to the same power and authority and self-determination and autonomy and goodness and
this
worthiness
works.
as a man. I just found that to be very insulting. And go figure, they took that part out of the temple because they knew that women didn't like it, and women don't want to be treated that way. And so to me, when they take these things out, it's just a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face to me, who had to live through that experience of fundamentally seeing myself in that way in comparison to a man. And I didn't even have to do the suicide pact. I didn't have to do the blood oath that my parents had to do when they first went through the temple. So these changes aren't they're not something, in my opinion, to necessarily celebrate, because it means that all of the anguish that people experienced at the hands of these doctrines doesn't just go away. It's not erased, and they never apologize for it. They never say, oh, well, that was actually doctrinally incorrect all along. They just secretly change it. And never, they never have to come out and say, hey, we did a lot of damage by teaching that women are second class to their husband. The film continues, but ends up getting interrupted quite a bit, and this is where the secret handshakes start happening, and the signs, and the tokens, and so
I'm gonna make them just smaller because it doesn't actually matter.
When I was watching the movie portion, it was kind of I felt like I was kind of able to mentally just be like, I'm just here watching a movie. It's just like the movie theater. But when they started having us do the handshakes and everything, I started to feel more anxious because it feels like there's a lot of eyes on you. It's presented as something that's really important for you to remember. So there are 4 signs to learn.
That's just stressful,
There are
bruh.
4 tokens to learn, and then there are 4 different names of the tokens. So basically, that's 12 different things
School
that
is
you're
less
supposed
stressful.
to remember. And then in addition, in your garments, the underwear, there's 4 different signs in the garments that you're told each represent a different thing, and then you're also given 5 laws to remember, 5 commandments to remember. So by the end of
there
it,
we
you
go.
just realize
That's good.
it almost feels like you're bored by the bureaucracy of it all a little
That's
bit.
better.
Or it's just confusing.
I
It's
think
just
I wanna
complicated for no reason. So there's
shelf
all
over
of
it,
these
though.
handshakes and names of handshakes and symbols and commandments and it's just a lot to kind of, especially when you're going through for the first time, it's a lot to keep track of it, and it can just feel like I'm being told what's supposed to be the most important information on the planet. This is supposed to be the handshakes that I am learning right now are how to pass
I want a
the
bigger
angels
one.
that stand as sentinels at the gates of heaven. So these handshakes are how I get into heaven. But we're going
That's too
over
much
this
pressure,
information
bruh.
quickly enough that I'm worried I'm going to forget it, basically. This is what the man's version of this looks like. And so, really just imagine
quite the veil.
you've been hyped up on the temple for your entire life as the most important experience you'll ever have, and then you don't have any idea, you have no idea about any
Why
of
is
this.
there not a good shelf?
And then you go through the temple, you watch the film, and you start learning the handshakes. And imagine just the gut punch that this would feel like. That you've fantasized about the temple as a place that I actually, I heard stories about God walking the halls of the temple. That it's literally the house of God. People literally see God in the temple. People literally see Jesus Christ. So I'm going in thinking there's a chance that Jesus may even reveal himself to me.
Bro.
I might see an angel. I might see a spirit.
That's crazy.
I might just feel transcendently happy. Anything feels possible. This is the most important thing that's ever going to happen to me. And this is instead what happens. You get dressed up in this silly outfit, you do some handshakes, you have to hold hands with random dudes, and none of it feels special, and all of it was hidden from you. You never knew it was going to happen. I had no idea. I just had no idea. And I think not having any idea about what is at the very heart, this is the heart of Mormonism.
There we go.
What we now see is the point of Mormonism is to get everyone to this point, to make these promises with God, to learn these handshakes, and to view this as the most ardently sacred thing that exists on the planet. So to list the laws, because there are several laws that you end up agreeing to. So if you remember, I said that, you're going to be asked to make promises. Sorry, it feels like my hair is bothering me. So there's the law of obedience, which is striving to keep all of God's commandments, whether that's not drinking coffee, never smoking cigarettes, never wearing tank tops, etc. The law of sacrifice, which means doing all we can to support the Lord's work. The law of the gospel, which is the higher law that Jesus taught while he was on the earth. The law of chastity, which is a very specific law.
I feel so bad for people brainwashed into thinking this.
No sexual relations until you are legally and lawfully wed. And the law of consecration. And the law of consecration, I think, is kind of the biggest deal. It's what sticks out to me as the most important law. This is the one where you are essentially promising that everything you possess should go up to building up Jesus Christ's church on the earth. The law of consecration is often, in my opinion, kind of held against members of the church because you promise when you go through the temple. The law of consecration is promising everything you have to the church. It's not like you're legally signing away your right to your stuff, but you're basically promising all of your time, your talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you to building up not just Jesus Christ's gospel. It is to build up the Mormon church. So the law of consecration isn't just about a spiritual willingness to follow Jesus. It is promising everything you possess to the Mormon church. So that hits pretty deep. So sometimes if someone is not willing to have a calling, or they can't pay tithing because they're running low on money, or they don't want to serve a mission as when they're older in the church, or really any time there might be this moment where a member who's endowed might say, hey, I don't know if I want to do that. This temple covenant can be used, and I've heard stories of it used against people, where they say, but you promise, I'm gonna have to pause when my food gets here so I can go grab it to the church. And that's true. That's the promise, word for word. So I think that the law of consecration, in my opinion, is the craziest of all of them. Oh, because you are literally promising to give everything you possess to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So you learn 4 signs, 4 names, and 4 tokens. And the tokens are the handshakes. So this is always the hand I use to show the handshakes.
Okay, let me go grab my food. So let's pause together, all right?
So
we're gonna pause.
The 4 handshakes are pretty
3,
boring. Like I said,
2,
it can end up feeling
1,
really nonsensical.
pause. Yay. Okay, paused at 56:28. I shall be back with Borger. All right, be right back. I'll just throw the brake screen really fast. I'll be right back. It'll literally take me like 2 seconds, but just wanna, yeah, be right back. I return with Shake Shack. Yee. I'm starved, so I'm very happy about this. Sorry, I had to move the mic. I need room. Room for the burger. Oh. Eek. Mmm. It is auto-saving, but I just saved it, so we're good. We're set. You like the hair? I feel like one of those Barbies where you can twist the head. You know, from like the 70s. Anyway. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I'll probably keep the split dye for a while because I really like having split dye hair. Anyway, back to the game. And we will play on 3, 2, 1, play.
Because there's so many tokens and names and signs, and I'll put off to the side here. I've shown in videos.
Don't mind me, I'm gonna eat for a little bit here.
The different tokens and handshakes and signs.
Starved.
For the sake of just making this video so it's not ultra long, I don't know. I honestly feel like when it was happening to me, I kind of was disassociating a little bit. I just felt like it was too much for me to process that this was happening to me. And I wanted to leave. I honestly did want to leave. And this is something I would have never consented to participate in as, you know, a fully understanding human being. But since this was so tied in, you know, this was part of me serving a mission. You go on, you do this ceremony, so you're ready to serve a mission. This was something that was held up to me as the pinnacle of my human experience. And this was the way to be in heaven again. This is how you get to the highest level of the celestial kingdom, is to be endowed in the temple. So much hinges on this.
So good.
So much of your salvation is hinging on your willingness to participate in this. And so that's why I was not willing to just get up and walk out. Because even if all of this felt foreign and uninspired
had blue
and
split dye last year, I think.
It still felt to me like I did buy into the idea that this is how I was going to get into heaven. So that, I think, was kind of how I was manacled to what was happening to me, and unable to move and unable to protest and unable to say how I really felt, was that so much of my salvation and my testimony of the church was hinging on my participation in the ceremony.
I was on the wrong screen.
So I didn't walk away. I didn't say heck no. I just continued with the handshakes and everything that I'm describing right now.
Something on this wall. I
kind of explained there's the tokens, so that's the handshake. Then there's different signs with each handshake. As an example of what the signs look like, this is one of the signs. This is one of the signs, or maybe this, I don't know. It does matter, but it's too hard to keep track of. This is one of the signs, a cupped hand, and then doing this is one of the signs. So those are some examples of the signs, so that's all of them, really. They used to have you promise penalties, so after you received the first sign, you would do this penalty to promise to, you know, kill yourself. The words you would say is, my throat will be cut from ear to ear, and my tongue torn out by its roots. So I didn't have to say that. My parents, though, would have had to say that. Another one would be making this cutting motion over the chest. The words, sorry, it's hard to read. My breasts to be torn open, my heart and vitals torn out, and given to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. And then the final one is drawing your same, you know, finger, your thumb from hip to hip. And the words were, my body to be cut asunder and all my bowels gush out. So people don't understand always why it's so offensive for me to do this. Partially it's because you used to have to promise to kill yourself if you ever did this, what I'm doing right now. And this is on a very large scale, you know. This is for anyone who wants to click on it. It's not even just me telling a secret to somebody who's not supposed to know. This is very public. So that's another reason why this ceremony has been held as a secret, is that for at least my parents and older, it was viewed as something so secret, so secretive, that you literally promised during the ceremony to kill yourself if you ever revealed what's being shown here. So that's another reason, that's another element. I never had to promise that. I was offended when I was sexism, and I'm sure my parents are like, hey, you think the sexism is bad? We used to have to promise to kill ourselves, so it could be worse. I'm gonna take this off for a bit.
That's crazy.
So claustrophobic in there. They say that one of the reasons you should go back again and again to the temple is because it's so complicated. So it's almost like,
it looks claustrophobic, bruh.
That's how you know it's so special, which obviously is not the case. So some people, you know, most people who are active members go back to the temple again and again throughout the course of their life, so hundreds of times. And the first time you go through for yourself, so you are doing the saving ordinance. So this is a saving ordinance in the same way baptism is a saving ordinance. You do the saving ordinance for yourself the first time. And then just like I explained baptisms for the dead, that's actually just the beginning. So you actually also do washing and anointings for the dead, and you do endowments for the dead, and you do marriages for the dead. So the reason people go back again and again to the temple is to continuously do these saving ordinance ceremonies for the people who have passed away. But when you do this ceremony in the name of a person's soul who has passed on, then you're still able to you're still doing the ceremony, and so people are supposed to use that as an opportunity to continue to reflect on the temple. I think what's also crazy is that a lot of people do this ceremony only once before they serve their mission. So if I served my mission, I got to go to Denver, Colorado, so there was a temple there. If I served in a mission with no temple, I would basically be going for a year and a half before going back again. So you would have this whole experience, and then you're just
I'm trying to find like kid artwork
again for a couple years. For men, at least 2 years before you get another opportunity. There are other cases which Mormons love to brag about, where people at great personal expense will, in foreign countries, travel for days. If you get baptized in certain countries like in Ghana or the Philippines, you may get baptized, but you are several hundred or more miles away from a temple. And so you're still very much encouraged to go. This is a saving ordinance, just like baptism. And so people at great personal expense will go to do the temple ceremony because they've bought into this religion that has been brought to them by America. And because it's so expensive, they may only go to the temple one time. So you would go and you would experience this and then get your garments, and they'd say, take your garments home, wear them every day, and you might only get one opportunity to go through this ceremony, which is crazy that you're gonna forget all the signs and tokens. How could you, I mean, unless you have a great knack for memorization, most people wouldn't be able to internalize everything that they tell you during the ceremony itself. Is over an hour long.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's crazy that
so
people
much.
give up so much in order to just go to the temple and this is what it is. But also the idea that you would go home and start wearing garments all the time is absolutely crazy to me, because you are committing yourself to an idea that you only got to interface with one time. It was very strange, and then you're expected to wear this religious underwear for the rest of your life, potentially with never having another opportunity to even try to figure out what it is that you went through that first time.
Bruh.
Towards the end is the prayer circles. When I went through, they say anyone who's going through for the first time who has that pink slip, which I was the only one in the room, needs to go and participate in the prayer circle. So the words that they say is, we would like to invite the witness couple to take their place at the head of the altar, and an equal number of brothers and sisters to join us in the circle. Any receiving their own personal endowment
Kids'
and
playroom.
any who are about to be married are especially invited to join us in the prayer circle. So, you know, you've been working through learning the handshakes and stuff, and then they have the prayer circle. So you walk up and you're on this platform, or you know, you're surrounding an altar, and you stand man woman. So my dad was on one side of me, which is, you know, at least nice that I know my dad, but then the man on the other side of me, I don't know. You actually do have to hold their hand or touch them, which I just don't like touching strange men that I've never met. But basically,
that's
with
weird.
one hand you do the patriarchal grip, and with the other hand you are standing with your elbow on their shoulder. So you're basically standing in a pose like this, and next to me I would have someone standing with their elbow on my shoulder. So you can see it in the picture here.
So weird.
And then you all make a big circle, man, woman. There are some words said. You're basically praying over some names that are in a sack. Growing up, I would always hear people say, I'll put your name in the temple. So if someone's name gets put in the temple, that name ends up in the sack in the center of the prayer circle, and then you're kind of symbolically praying over the names just as they're written in the sack. You don't say the names out loud, you're just praying over a sack filled with names. And
that's so goofy,
there's
bruh.
some words said, and then at the end you say, oh God, hear the words of my mouth 3 times.
Okay,
and
kids'
that's the
room.
chanting
Let's go.
part. And that's, I think,
The
part that
upstairs
really kind of gets
complete,
to people
actually.
the most. That and maybe
We need
the
some
veil,
seating over
because
here for people to
I mean,
watch.
you're literally standing in a circle wearing this, chanting, "Oh God, hear the words of my mouth." And the women during this portion, the women are required to veil their faces. And it's just really hard to go through an experience like that. And first, to even take it seriously. Second of all, to not feel betrayed
Stop.
and feel like you've been lied to, or the truth has been concealed from you.
The
And
take it
thirdly,
seriously
to
is
just
so
not go through
real.
that and feel like I'm in a cult. It is a cult. Unfortunately, that not to say that, you know, I don't love my family, or I don't love that my family has tried to do what's right for me by bringing me to this place, but it's very hard. It's very obviously on its face that I'm participating in a very culty ceremony right now, and that's upsetting. And when, you know, when you go from thinking
Bruh.
I have the best experience of my life, my happiest moment of my life, to I'm in a cult, that's just a lot emotionally to have to deal with over the course of a few hours. And that is definitely how I felt as I was in the prayer circle, having, you know, being in this close embrace, and then doing the chanting. It just, it was hard for me to say anything other than, I hate this, you know, in my head. I hate this. I want to leave. I don't want any part of this. After the prayer circle, you then
At least she didn't
to go
buy
through the
into it.
veil. So they have this curtain, and they draw back this curtain, and behind the curtain is this white veil, and there are openings in the curtain, and basically it's in Masonry, it's the 5 points of fellowship. And in the Mormon Church, they actually, during the temple ceremony, they would also just call it the 5 points of fellowship. They got rid of that, and now just it's called the veil. So basically you go to the veil, and as you're standing at the veil, there's a man on the other side. So I'm on this side of the veil. A man is on the other side of the veil. At the veil, the man on the other side is meant to be the Lord, and there's a temple worker who comes and stands very closely next to you. The man puts his hand through the veil in the opening through the veil.
Ew.
And I mean, it's so.
What?
I also hated this part. Imagine you're just standing at the veil. You're covered in this clothing, and an old man's hand juts out from the veil, and you
It is
are
now
supposed to grab
complete.
it. So I grabbed
Downstairs.
his hand like a handshake, and then he kind of quizzes you on all the different handshakes
We
that
have
you've been learning
bathroom.
throughout the ceremony. So
We have
first handshake,
changing
second
room,
handshake, then you get
showers
to
for
the
that.
patriarchal grip,
Right,
and you
okay.
haven't learned the
Now I
name
remember what we
of
did.
the patriarchal grip yet. That's kind of why you're supposed to be in the veil. For the first few handshakes, the names are easy. So one of the names is your given name, so it would be Alyssa.
Game.
One of the names is your new
These
name,
are
which is
games.
Ada.
Okay.
So those are single words, right? But the name of the final handshake, the patriarchal grip, is a long, it's just a long thing to say. So I didn't know it, obviously, as it was my first time, and the temple worker is meant to help you learn it. So picture this. You're standing at the veil, you're holding the old man's hand. During learning this portion, his hand comes through another hole in the curtain, and he hugs you. This is what it looks like. And that's the 5 points of masonry, that's the 5 points of fellowship. And then your arm goes through the other hole, and you are meant to embrace him. And it's a man. You know, this is not one of, you know, at least in the initiatory, it's all women. But this, you are being embraced by a man through a curtain that you do not know.
What the
And
fuck?
Then you are instructed to say, with the woman whispering carefully in your ear, health in the navel, marrow in the bones, strength in the loins and in the sinews, power in the priesthood to be upon me and upon my posterity through all generations to come, and throughout all eternity. And once you say that correctly, then the Lord or the man on the other side of the curtain says, you know, good job, let her enter. And he pulls you through the curtain into the celestial room. So this is a picture of the celestial room. This is the end of the ceremony. It's meant to be the most happy part of the ceremony.
Nice room, but look.
The celestial room, it's basically like a very white hotel lobby. But it, you know, it's supposed to be really happy. So my mom had gone through before me. She had been pulled through the veil before me.
Bro.
And because, you know, it's one-on-one. So they're kind of slowly pulling people up. You do it one-on-one. There's maybe 5 people pulling the men through and 5 people pulling the women through.
Thank you.
So
I know.
you know,
I'm like
my
actually in
mom
the
was
zone
already
for
in,
building
and
today
I
for
remember
once.
that she very anxiously came up to me and basically said, "What did you think?" And I really wanted to, you know, I really wanted to be honest, because it's hard to lie. Like, lying in the temple felt wrong, because it seems like if this is really the house of the Lord, this is probably the one place you shouldn't lie. But I did not tell the truth. In my head, I just felt like I hated that. I never want to do that again. I'm in a cult.
What am I supposed to put this
My
on?
family's in a cult. This was so strange and so weird and had no bearing on my spirituality. I didn't feel the spirit at all. I didn't feel God's love at all. I just felt totally repulsed. And she was, "How did you feel?" And I wanted to be a good daughter. I wanted to be a good girl. And I just said, I loved it. It was great. And she looked, you know, relieved. And we went and sat in the celestial room for probably 10 minutes. They kind of, you know, they don't ask you to leave, but you feel like you're only supposed to stay there for a brief amount of time to kind of make way for the next group of people that's coming through. And I don't even think I asked her any questions. You know, I think later I might have asked some questions of, like, mission companions, but I didn't ask her any questions at that juncture. I literally just felt completely overwhelmed.
There.
And I remember walking back behind her to go to the bathrooms or the stalls to go change into our regular clothes, and just feeling like, what just happened to me? What was that?
Valid question.
And, you know, after we got out of the room, after we got out of the temple, me and my mom and my dad, we all took a picture together. I couldn't find it. I don't even know if I think it might just be somewhere on someone's camera somewhere. But we all took a picture because it was, you know, supposed to be a really, really, really important day for me. And I don't know if I have even ever seen the picture, but I just remember trying to smile for the picture and feeling like, I'm lying right now. I didn't like it. I hated it. And I'm sitting here smiling in this picture like everything was hunky-dory. Everything was just so lovely and sweet and happy, and I really didn't like it at all. I'm going to get changed out of this now that we finished that portion of the video, and then I will continue. All right. I've got to say, I feel so much better in normal clothing. I actually, as I already showed you, I have my endowment paper in here, and I wrote in my journal after I did my endowment mission. I wrote in my journal a few days after I did my endowment.
Dude, I hate loins. Loins is such a...
I actually am really glad
Loins is like moist for me.
I think reading the entry, I consider this time
like how other people hate the word moist. That's loins for me.
I ever was to the Mormon Church. So in my most faithful state, I experienced what I just talked about, and it really made me have a lot of
none of these gonna fit on the
dissonance
thingy.
about my very sincere desire to serve a mission and my absolute repulsion at the temple ceremony. So I wanted to read the portion of my journal where I talk about the temple experience. I went through the temple and received my endowments yesterday. Everyone keeps asking me how it was, but it's definitely something that is hard to put into coherent words and phrases. I think as time goes on, I'll be able to understand and be more comfortable with it. It was good though. And I think the advice my mom gave me was very sound, that if I have anything I'm unsure about, that I can always pray about it. It was certainly an overwhelming experience though, and I'm not sure how I could have better prepared, maybe knowing anything at all about it. I think I need to pray about it and go again to develop more faith.
Bruh.
I'm sure I'll write about it more throughout my life, and that is it. So, I mean, it honestly makes me want to cry reading that, because the idea that I'm describing it as an overwhelming experience. Obviously, I didn't like it. But I don't, even in my personal journal, I don't want to say how I really feel. I literally say, I think as time goes on, I think I'll be more comfortable with it. So if you read between the lines, I felt then how I'm saying I felt now. I'm just now able to be very brutally honest about it, that I didn't like it. And the fact that, I know I keep reiterating this, but the fact that I went into it having such high expectations and then experiencing what I did is obviously clear in this entry, that I didn't like
so
it,
bad for
and
her.
I wanted nothing to do with it. After I went through the temple, I did start wearing garments regularly. I wore them from the time that I got my endowment all through my 1.5-year mission, and then about 2 years after that. So all told, I probably wore garments for about 3 to 3.5 years.
Wow.
And I really had this crossroads of a moment when I went through the temple for the first time, where I sat after taking a shower after we got home, and I saw my 2 little baggies to open a new pair of garments, and I felt in that moment like I had this option, right? I felt that maybe this was the crossroads where I should just walk away from this church. Maybe I should just say,
Jean. Thank you. I'll have to
ready for this. I need some
walk
time
out
to
of
think
the
about
room.
it. I'm not going to start wearing garments.
I'll do it when
And
this
honestly,
video's
to
done,
some
because it's
extent,
almost
the
over.
fact that I had pre-promised at the beginning of the endowment weighed on me pretty heavily, because I still felt manipulated into. I did promise to wear these.
I'm also doing another stream later.
This was one of the covenants I made when I was in the temple, and as I stepped out of the shower and I'm in my towel, I kind of was like gritting my teeth and just saying, I'm gonna do it. If my mom believes in it,
mobile everything is always
and my sister who served a mission, and all of these people I trust, I'm just gonna do it too. And I allowed myself, instead of saying, no, I need to believe in it myself, I just said, I'm going to take other people's word that this is the right thing, and I'm going to shove any feeling that this is wrong down so far that I can put this underwear on my body and just completely distinguish any feelings I have that this is not what I should be doing. I continued on my Mormon mission. I still went to serve a whole mission. I was there for 1.5 years. And the whole time I really didn't like wearing garments. I remember
they don't look
trying
super
to have
comfortable.
some conversations with my sister missionary companions or other people who I met, because another element of this is you're not allowed to talk about outside of the temple. So
thank you.
I left those temple grounds with my mom, I actually wasn't even able to ask her anything, according to the rules.
I will go do
I couldn't
that
ask my
in
mom
a
outside
bit.
of the temple. I didn't have another opportunity to go to ask those questions. I think I was worried that my questions would come off as a lack of faith anyways. I remember talking to the women that I was serving my mission with and saying, what do you think? And I felt like in many ways the temple and saying you love the temple was like its own form of Mormon bragging, because everyone I would talk to would just say, I loved it, I loved the temple, I love the temple ceremony, I love my garments. I feel like everyone had such a just kind of mask on that there was no recognition or even like hint that they thought it was strange. And it felt to me almost dystopian even at the time that nobody was willing to just say, yeah, it was a little odd, or yeah, I was unsure. I don't think I had any conversations of somebody who just said, I didn't like it. Nobody ever said that. And I think it was because your spirituality is so closely tied with your ability or your willingness to just completely say, I love the temple, I'm not holding anything back here, I completely 100% endorse everything that happens in that building. And so I think that also made me feel very alone and very unworthy. I think I felt a lot of guilt that I didn't like it because so many people seemed to just unabashedly be willing to say they loved it. People would also, this is very common, people would kind of make stuff up about the temple. So for example, they'd say, well, because there's this many pleats that represents this many tribes of Israel, or in, you know, the reason women veil their faces is in this one part of the Bible, and the reason that this token is called that is because of this scripture. And there's a lot of maybe editorializing or rewriting, or people who would say,
that's so goofy.
You know what it really means, because when you go through all of that, what I just described, you're left with what even was that? How does that have any bearing on my experience in the church so far? And people do a lot of, I think, bullshitting. It reminds me of, you know, when nobody has read the book in English class and people just start making analogies and using metaphors and trying to just say, well, you know, the reason a stop sign is red is because if you run the red sign, you're gonna have your blood come out of you from a car accident. Or, you know, the reason the sky is blue is because Jesus's favorite color is blue. Didn't you know? And they just sound so sure of themselves, but it's utter bullshit. I apologize at this point for a slight rug pull, because I know I said I was going to go into baptisms for the dead and my wedding, but I am out of time to record my video for this week. I have made a couple of videos about my wedding and about baptisms for the dead. Those ones do actually go more into my personal experiences than the garment video I made and the endowment video I made about a year ago. So I apologize for the rug pull, but the great news is that if you want to watch those videos, you can go straight to watch them right now. I stand by everything I said in them. It's kind of funny because when I write my little outlines, I get so in the weeds with some of these things, because I just, it's like so much to explain, so much to talk about, so many different rules and, you know, the changes and what I experienced and what it means. And it's really hard to cover all of this information. And also it just, you know, I do end up getting kind of worked up. I get a little emotional, I get a little anxious, I get a little, you know, it's hard to talk about these things. You know, the first time I ever made a video with the garments, my hands were kind of shaking, and it's not because I felt any sense of guilt, it's because I've been very programmed to believe that talking about these things makes me fundamentally a bad person. And you know, I don't necessarily believe that logically anymore, but I do think that to some extent, knowing that I'm breaking a huge taboo, I'm breaking a huge kind of
game
social
equipment in there
that my community has, is really, it is actually kind of hard to talk about these things. Maybe that's apparent by how much I stumble over my words. Usually I cut out a lot of the stumbling because nobody wants to hear somebody stumble over their words. But anyways, this is important to me to talk about because ultimately I believe this information should be widely available. I think anyone who's ever considering joining the church should have a lot of access to this information. I think that before missionaries choose to serve a mission, they should be able to know that this is what happens in the temple. I think that if we're going to sing, I love to see the temple, I'm going there someday, there should be a verse about secret handshakes and about the veil and about the prayer circle and about the washing and anointing and the oil. You know, I just think that the fact that all of this can be concealed from mostly almost everyone under the guise of too sacred is just a thin lie. That's a lie. The reason you guys don't want to talk about it is because it's strange, and you would have a very hard time getting converts if this was something that was much more at the front of
it's like
the
legit
presentation to the world.
Like stereotypically what
Light
cults
the World
do.
Campaigns over Times Square, and
I think that's the
you can
crazy
tell
part for
people
me.
that Jesus is what is at the heart of the religion, but as someone
This will
who
be the
was raised in the
kids'
church,
activity room,
I
I
believe
think.
that the temple, which Jesus is surprisingly not very present in the endowment ceremony, I think that the temple is the heart of Mormonism, and I think that it's proof that it is a cult. And maybe it's a soft cult, and maybe it's cult-ish, but it's a cult nonetheless, in my opinion. And I hope that if you found this information and you're still with me here at the end, and you're an active member, and you're someone who's planning on attending the temple soon, I hope that if nothing else, this just helped you make a more informed decision about your future. Certainly some people see my videos and they say, this made me sure I want to serve a mission. Okay, well, more information made you more sure. Great, I suppose. And if this makes you choose to not serve a mission, Great. More information made you help you have a more informed choice, and I'm just an advocate for easy access to information and for unfettered access to information, and to making sure that if people are going to be making major decisions with their life and their money and their time and the lives of their children, that they should be able to be as informed as possible. Thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to drop a comment for the algorithm, or drop a comment about your temple experience. Fair. And as always, I will see you all next week.
Oh, time for Kitty to eat.
I just finished watching Heretic.
Okay. Let me find another thing to watch. Soul. Back away from that, Kiatin. Did you already eat it, baby? That was fast. I don't think there was anything in there, was there? Here, I'll text your father. Okay. Let me see. Alright, let me exit the room really fast and grab something. I have to take my food with me, otherwise they'll fucking eat it. I'm not gonna put the break screen up this time, it'll take like 2 seconds. Be right back. Squizzy. We're just gonna vape instead because YouTube won't get mad about that because it won't really notice. Cheers. It's snowing. Jealous. Okay, let me see. Oh, perfect. I don't think we've seen this. Okay. Hopefully when I play this one, it will work better. It's a little over an hour, so hopefully it's not the end of the world. There we go. All right. Another cult. We're staying in theme. Yay. See, I love snow. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna play. Everyone pull it up. Okay. Actually, I'll give you guys a second longer to pull it up. And now. 3, 2, 1. Play.
May I present the Reverend Sun Myung Moon.
Reverend Moon has said he will conquer and subjugate the world, once proclaiming, "I am your brain."
But whether we like it or not, we have to realize that due to the fall of the first human ancestors, we were born into the lineage of Satan.
I don't care if Moon is like Hitler. I've chosen to follow him, and I'll follow him to the end.
The Reverend Sun Myung Moon, leader of the Unification Church. You may know them as the Moonies.
Again! And the
Oh.
physics is centered on
The Moonies.
Satan. The world literature and media have often stimulated physics. Physics should completely disappear. What is the differences between men and women? Priesthood of human sexual organs
Oh, buddy.
shaped as concave and convex. Why are they shaped that way?
I guess Father was weak in the flesh. But then if you say that, you're saying God is weak in the flesh.
Meet the Reverend Sean Moon, youngest son of the founder of the Unification Church.
Christians say I'm a cult leader, and they say you're cult members. Well, they said that about Jesus Christ too.
Therefore, now nobody can oppose me. Oppose me.
Is it 2 candles, like, fucking each other? What is going on?
Today I want to talk about 2 cults. Okay, you're getting a 2 for today. So it's basically a father who started a cult, and then a lot of shit went down, and then his son started a cult. Both of these are still operating today. There's a lot more than that going on in terms of siblings, and the mom stole it from her son, and then the son called her the whore of Babylon, and then the daughter took over at one point, and she had a scandal, they kicked her out, and the other son, he
Brother.
died, and the 3 sons died. It's a lot.
Jesus.
I actually had both of these cults on my list of like video ideas, and then someone I know personally in my life mentioned that, oh, did I tell you that, I was in a cult? And I was like, no, you didn't. I would remember that. And they're like, oh yeah, the Moonies. Do you know the Moonies? And I was like, yeah, I know the Moonies. I mean, I don't know everything, but I want to do a video about them. And he was like, I grew up in there. He's like, I'm no longer in the church. Like, I don't practice it, but I definitely grew
Girl,
up.
what?
And I was like, oh my gosh, do you know that like his son now has a gun cult? And he was like, yeah. And he starts like telling me all these things, and I was flabbergasted.
That is crazy.
Okay, my gaston was flabbered. So the whole
My gaston
thing
was
really
flabbered.
starts in 1945 in North Korea. There is a 25-year-old man, and his name is Sun Myung Moon, and he is becoming obsessed with a religious teacher. And this teacher, his name is Kim Baek Moon, but we're gonna call him Kim. Now, Sun Myung Moon would end up actually stealing a lot of this guy's ideas to start his own cult. One of these things is this ritual, a sex ritual, of course. And it's called, and I think I'm gonna mess up the name, but it's called like Pikarum. It means a change of blood lineage. This ritual was taught by
some
Kim.
supplies
And when
over
Kim
here.
taught it, it was basically the way to cleanse people from the original sin. Adam and Eve, like God told her, don't eat this apple from this tree, and then the devil was like, eat the apple, it's really good, and then she was like, oh my God, I want to eat the apple. She ate
It's
the
really
apple.
good.
And that's why we're not in heaven anymore, and that's why we're here struggling on earth, because Eve ate the apple. Okay, well,
Oh my God.
some fringe groups of Christianity believe that's not the actual original sin. They believe that it was actually that Lucifer seduced Eve, and that Eve had sex with Lucifer, and that that's how Cain was born, right? Have you ever heard of Cain and Abel? Cain killed his brother Abel, and it's like the first murder of humanity. Well, they believe that Cain is the spawn of Satan, like a demon seed that Eve gave birth to when she slept with the devil. And you didn't think I was going to get this crazy this early.
Makes sense.
I am. And it's not even the craziest. Anyway, basically they believe that we are all demon seeds because we are
Amazing.
descendants from Eve having sex with the devil.
Amazing.
Right. So how do we fix it? According to Kim, you can clean it,
Goddamn.
purify it, and it's through this ritual, the exchange of blood. Because Kim's pure, of course. And so he's like, I'm going to sleep with a woman, and when I do that...
Of course, that's the logical next step.
When she sleeps with another man, she purifies him, and then their kids are pure. And this is how we eliminate demon seeds from the earth. So this idea was also taken...
Listen, I just have to fuck your wife before you do, so that I can purify her. Listen, it's not weird. I just have to purify her with my penis. It's not weird. In a very not weird way, I have to purify your wife with my dick.
And he ends up actually taking some of his followers, the female ones. He takes this idea that he has about the sex ritual. He steals his notebook, which he's going to use to create his own cult, which Kim was really pissed about. Because Kim had this story that he would tell. He said that he was on a mountaintop in North Korea when Jesus came to visit him, and Jesus told him, like, Korea is the chosen nation and this is the new chosen people, and that's why he named his church the Israel Monastery. That's what Kim said. What Moon said was that he was also on a mountaintop in North Korea when Jesus came to him, but what Jesus told him was like, hey, hi, you're the second coming of Christ, you're the Messiah.
Stop.
And like, you need to finish the work that I couldn't finish because I got crucified. Jesus was supposed to have children, but he got crucified, and so he couldn't have children. And so it was his mission, right? Divine mission, mind you, to create this new human race that is free from sin, from the demon seed sin, right? And the way to do it is through this sex ritual. He is actually able to get followers. He gets these women to sleep with him, and he tells them that they're purified, and he also put a twist on this ritual. It was very specific. First of all, he had to sleep with a married woman. Second of all, he had to sleep with her 3 times very specifically. First 2 times, the woman had to be on top, and then the third time, the man had to be on top to, quote, restore dominion. There also had to be a witness to this ritual. And the reason for that was to remove the shame.
Please, that's so funny.
Was now purified.
Oh my god.
She had to
and people fell for that. That's so...
And then if they ended up having
kids, how did you fall for that?
Those kids would
Come on. That is the most obvious fetish disguised as something else.
Relay race where once you got purified by Moon, you had to sleep with other people who sleep with other people to spread the purity around.
Bro.
Once Moon completed this ritual, the woman that he slept with would become a Mary, like named after sort of Mary Magdalene, because he said that when Jesus came to him in the mountain that one time in North Korea, he told him that he was supposed to marry Mary Magdalene and have kids. And so part of his mission is to create 6 Marys. Then he has to marry a virgin in a ceremony known as the Feast of the Lamb. Okay. Over time, though, it turned into like him sleeping with several women at the same time, and a lot of witness, like basically. Okay. What ex-followers say from these early times is that he was having orgies. Okay, and he just kind of like wrapped it up in this religious bow. It was just a way for him to have orgies, and he really liked having them with married women. Now, there's a little something I didn't mention. Okay, and that is that Moon was married. Right, he was. His wife, she knew that he was preaching and stuff like that, but I guess she didn't really know the extent of like the rituals and what was going on, because there was an incident that happened in the 40s, and there's actually a picture of this. And basically, his wife goes to the church, and when she goes there, she interrupts him in the middle of a ritual that he is having with 2 women. There's pictures of her like fighting with him. Then she goes back home, and she gets this wooden stick, and she starts breaking the signs to the church. Because another factor that I would like to mention is that Moon, why did he pick married women? Well, he said that that's like what he was supposed to do, but something that was beneficial with married women is that they usually had husbands' money to steal. And he would justify this by saying, like, this is for God, okay? And so he basically sleep with them and convince them to take money, either sell things, steal money from their husbands, and give that to him. And so he would use that money to build churches and spread his word and do everything. And the best part about it was that after he did that to these women, he would abandon them. And so they would be just like really in a bad way. Either their husband would find out that they stole or that they were doing these rituals, and they would get upset. And so they would be shunned by the community or beaten by their husbands. And then Moon would take their money and abandon them. And so a lot of these Marys would end up alone and destitute and shunned, like, at the end of their life. When Moon's wife finds him doing this ritual and goes off on him, he gets scared that she's gonna, like, report him to the police, because in Korea, adultery is a crime. So he goes on the run. And this is in 1946. And he continues doing what he's been doing. Well, neighbors and, people in the community, they find out about what he's doing. They don't like it, and they report him to police. In 1946, he gets arrested for, quote, anti-communist activities, and they sentence him to 100 days. He was, like, at a labor camp. After 100 days, he gets released, and he ends up moving in with a woman and her husband. And they're, like, his followers, and he's preaching this, ritual and things to them, and obviously doing the ritual. And again, he gets reported to police, and again, he gets arrested. This is in 1948. This is where he gets sentenced to 5 years. Now, in his official telling of the story, he talks about he was persecuted because they were afraid of him, and other churches were intimidated by him, and so they reported him. Mm-hmm. So he gets this 5-year sentence. However, he only serves 2 out of those 5 years, because in 1950, North and South Korea go to war. And it's during the war that there's, like, air raids and the UN troops come in, and he ends up getting out of prison in North Korea, and that's when he flees and he goes to South Korea. In South Korea, Moon's cult really, really takes off, really flourishes, because he doesn't just set his sight on women who are married, but wealthy women who are married. And this allows him to get very large sums of money. He has these women sell one of their many homes and steal from their wealthy husbands who don't even notice. And he gets all this money, and he starts building so many churches. I mean, in just a few years, he has over 30 churches in South Korea and a large following. Just like in North Korea, he's sort of leaving this trail of destruction. I don't know if you've noticed, Baba,
but I'm kind of eating at the moment, so I can't have you on.
Sometimes they get pregnant, and so he has these illegitimate children, but he just sort of doesn't acknowledge them and abandons them, and then leaves them for younger Marys. And it's not 6 Marys like he claims. I mean, one of the followers who wrote this book called The Tragedy of the 6 Marys, he said it was more like 60 Marys. And he's just going around doing all this, and he's also having his male followers participate in this. So it's basically just like straight up orgies according to the early ex-members. Now keep in mind, officially, right, Moon and the officials who are still in the church, they deny this. They do acknowledge these rituals, but they claim it was only the 6 Marys, not that it was, a bunch of other women. The woman really couldn't do anything, because what is she going to say, right? She's going to go say that she slept with him when she's married. That's illegal. Is she going to tell her husband that he took the money that she stole and she slept with him and he left her? They can't do anything. So they're just left to sort of suffer. And then if they're exposed, which happened a few times where these husbands would find out. Remember, these are wealthy men in South Korea. They're powerful. And now they find out that this guy is like a cult leader and he's sleeping with their wife and taking their money, so they would go and try to find him, and he was always on the run. The thing is these women, they gave him everything. They were so devoted to the point where they did some really messed up shit. Like there were more.
You put your kids in an orphanage?
Instance where
what is wrong with you,
a Mary, if you will, would sleep with Moon, and her daughters would sleep with Moon at the same time. They would give him their daughters to do that with. It was gross. It was gross. So sometimes you would hear a story where, like, she was so devoted to him, she let him sleep with her daughters, like, in the same room, and then she stole from her husband and this and that. And then I'm like, where's the part where I feel bad for her? Because I don't.
Right.
If I
Like,
was there
ew,
and I
what the
saw
fuck?
you involve your daughter in an orgy with this old man, I would probably be the one beating your ass, by the way. But that's a side note that nobody asked for. Moon is starting to get
agree, though.
old. He's got over 30 churches. He's trying to spread over to Japan and other countries, and he's got all these followers. He really is getting a little cocky. I mean, that's a pun if I ever heard one. Anyway, he ends up basically in a scandal, and it's called the Ewha Womans College scandal. This is a situation where 5 professors and 14 students from this women's college ended up joining Moon's cult. And one of these students, she actually gets pregnant by Moon. And Moon takes her scholarship money and abandons her. And the college ends up finding out about all of this.
Oof.
And how there's professors and students that are in this cult, and they ask the police to investigate Moon. What ends up happening in this investigation is that Moon gets arrested, okay? He gets arrested as well as some of his followers. And this was on the 4th of July in 1955. He goes to trial, and he is found not guilty. Okay, and I want to read you a quote from this book that I told you about, The Tragedy of the Six Marys, which is written by a former member. It's translated from Korea, and they keep saying, like, they were charged with gangbang, and they were investigating gangbang. They keep saying gangbang, and I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. They say that on October 4th, 1955, Moon was found not guilty and released. The purpose of the investigation then was to prove the activity of gangbang. Women who involved in gangbang had not courage to confess it, and their husbands felt ashamed
Weird
to say
translation.
that. Therefore, Moon was released. But it was true that they had sex
There's
with
some
Moon.
art supplies.
I looked into it, and there were also rumors of, like, him paying certain people off and whatever. But in any case, he gets released. There's even a photo of him getting released, and he's happy, and there's all his followers there to greet him. And so he feels, again, untouchable, and he goes back to his old ways, doing what he was doing. And now it's a few years later, and it is 1960. And here we have a turning point. There's a woman. Her name is Annie Choi. So Annie, she joins the cult in the 50s, and she was 17 when she joined. Her mom and her sister were also in this cult, and her mom is the one who brought her in. And actually, when she was 17 years old, she slept with Moon as part of an initiation into it, okay? And she said that, quote, he would assemble them all in a circle and take turns mounting them. Now, Annie says that her mother was very,
I hate
loyal.
It is a horrible day to have
that her
ears.
father
Oh my
was
god.
actually so wealthy. He was the owner of the biggest insurance company in Korea. So Annie's mom, she actually offered her 2 daughters, Annie and her older daughter, to Moon to marry as part of this, like, Feast of the Lamb. At first, Moon was down with it. He was like, okay. But then the older sister, she decided to leave the cult, right? She had enough, and she left. And this is when Moon started having second thoughts. He's like, wait a minute. This is a wealthy family. This daughter is unruly. She left. Like, do I even want to marry the young daughter now? Because what if she decides she wants to leave, and then her father is so powerful, he'll come after me, and he decides to back out. And he chooses another girl to marry. She's 17, and Moon is 40 at this time. And she is an illegitimate child that came as a result of one of these rituals. A man that worked for him, who was part of his cult, slept with a woman, and this girl, her name is Hak Ja Han, she was the result of that. She was very shy, she was pretty, she was young, and her father did not claim her. So Moon was like, oh, this is perfect. Her father is not going to get me in trouble. So Moon decides to marry Hak Ja Han, and she becomes true mother. They are the true parents.
Oh, no.
After Moon marries her, he does something really messed up. He basically tells his followers that it is time to begin the era of the completed testament. Okay, what does that mean?
I was
This
about to
means
say,
that
what does
Moon
that mean?
had to make his wife, 17-year-old Hak Ja Han, pay for Eve's sins. He had to reverse the fall of man. And how is he going to do that? He was going to lock her in a room for 3 years. And the reason why he did this was to, number one, cleanse her, but also get rid of her, quote, Eve-like defiance and make her absolutely obedient. Meanwhile, remember Annie Choi? The one he was supposed to marry originally and whatever. So according to Annie Choi, who was still a follower at this time, even though he decided not to marry her, while Hak Ja Han was locked up in this room and all that, he was sleeping with other women and all that. So here where it gets a little weirdly. Okay, it's a little odd. And it's gonna keep getting odder. Why am I talking about that? Moon tells his followers, do you want to join me in creating a sinless bloodline? Because there should be 36
don't like where that's going.
royal families, sacred families, which are basically couples that he chooses to match together that are going to create this sort of pure human bloodline to populate the earth and whatever take over. He says, this is what you guys have to do. You gotta let me pick who you marry, and once I pick the matches, I need to clean your wives, remember. Okay, everyone has this demon seed in them, so what does that mean? It means that he has to sleep with all 36 brides. He has to do it 3 times with a witness, remember. Twice she's on top, 3rd time he's on top. And so they're like, yeah. And everyone's like, oh my God, like, am I going to be picked to be part of the 36 sacred, royal, pure, sinless family?
Speaking, because holy shit.
Later on, as
he
wanted to spread it around the world in later years, and there were way more people, he didn't actually sleep with the women, but he created this ritual that they had to perform, and that's still how it is till this day.
What the fuck is this?
It starts first with this indemnity stick ritual where they beat each other with sticks,
There's a weird
the bride and the
pop-up.
groom, before they get married, to cleanse each other. And like one bride was talking about how, like, you know, her groom beat her really bad, and she had like bruises all over herself, like her bottom and her legs, on her wedding day, which sounds like a lot of fun. And then so they beat each other with sticks, they get married, and then they have this 3-day
great ritual. It sounds amazing.
Ritual that they have to do, which is very specific on like how they have sex, the positions. There's like holy handkerchiefs that they have to wipe with and never clean and hang on the walls. It's like a whole thing. Anyway, let's get back to the timeline. So now it's 1961, and he's done his first blessing ceremony.
Okay.
And something else happens though in 1961. There is a very big political shakeup in South Korea. This results in people who are affiliated with Moon and his churches becoming high-ranking in the government. And one of these people is Bohee Pak, okay? And I might have said that wrong, but I'm just going to call him BHP. So BHP, he was very close and loyal to Moon. He ends up getting affiliated with, you know, the Korean CIA. He gets sent to Washington, D.C. to be sort of what they call a liaison between the American CIA and the Korean CIA. A few years after that, in 1964, Annie Choi, remember her? She is the one.
Yeah, it's just like an art room.
Supposed to marry Moon, then her sister left and whatever. Okay, she goes to the United States as well. She gets into Georgetown University, which is also in Washington, D.C., and she goes to the States to attend. Before Annie goes to the States, she actually gets married to Moon, but in a secret ceremony. So now BHP is in the States and Annie Choi is in the States, and they're not too far from each other. Well, a year after that, Moon goes to America for the first time. And when he's in America, he visits BHP, and he also visits Annie.
Oh, there.
And they have sex together, and Annie gets pregnant. He's not supposed to be married to someone else other than True Mother. and he's true father, and he's over here having secret weddings and secret babies and all that.
Gross.
So he's like, we have to keep this secret. So Moon comes up with a plan, and the plan is this: you're gonna sit here in the States and have the baby. When you give birth to the baby, okay, BHP, who is in Washington with his wife, and he has 5 kids, we are going to make it look like the baby is BHP's baby with his wife. And it's this whole elaborate thing where BHP's wife is pretending she's pregnant. She's like stuffing her clothes to make it look like she has a pregnant belly and telling everyone she's pregnant. Her kids even didn't know that this was, fake. And then Annie is in hiding, and then she gives birth to the baby, and then BHP's wife comes home with that baby. So the baby ends up being called Samuel. Annie decides to stay even after she's done with school and be next to him, and she's visiting him all the time, but she's pretending that she's his aunt, and that's how that goes. Now it's 1970, and we have a death. And this is a death that ex-members blame on Moon. They actually call it a, quote, indirect murder. One of his earliest followers, his name is Ewha, I think, but I'm going to call him Yu. So Yu knew all of Moon's dirty secrets. He was there from the beginning. He helped him write his book, which is the Divine Principle, like his teachings and concepts and stuff, which was based on that stolen book that he took all the way from that first teacher, Kim. You knew all about that. You knew all about the sex rituals and everything like that. Like, he knew all his dirty secrets, like I said. But now it's 1970, and Moon is, number one, making a lot of money, and number two, after he went to the States, he realized he wants to expand to the States in a big way. He was already in Japan and other countries, and now he wants to go big, right? And so he feels like he can't have people knowing all these dirty secrets about him that could potentially expose him and ruin everything. This is the theory, right? So Yu was sick, and there could have been a surgery that he could do, but the problem was this surgery was actually extremely dangerous and was very likely to kill him. So even the doctors said he should not get the surgery. But Moon really wanted him to get the surgery. And Yu was like, no, I don't want to get the surgery because it's going to kill me. But then Moon ordered him to get the surgery. He was basically like, this is a divine order. Like, you must get the surgery. This is God's will.
Bruh, fuck that.
And they say that Yu, like, begged him, please, I don't want to get the surgery. Like, it's going to kill me, everything like that. Nothing. He still tells him you have to get the surgery, and Yu gets the surgery. And lo and behold, he dies.
Bruh.
And this is why people believe that Moon is responsible for Yu's death.
That
and they
sucks.
think it's because two things, right? One, what I told you earlier, to keep him quiet and stop him from exposing him, but also because he's seen as the Messiah and second coming of Jesus, he felt like people were going to expect that he could heal you, and he couldn't. And so he thought the surgery would either heal him, or if he died, it would be like, okay, well, it's God's will. You know what I mean? That's like two things that I found online. But in any case, people say that it's like his fault, but you decide. Now it's a year later,
it kind of seems like his fault.
Moon comes back to the U.S., and this is where he makes his like big splash in the United States. He has a lot of money at this time, and he is using that money to make like this sort of media campaign promoting himself and his church and everything like that. So he's got 7 kids at this time, and he comes to the States with his wife, Hak Ja Han, and his kids, and they get this huge estate just outside of Manhattan. It's called East Garden. It's like 18 acres, this huge home, and they live there, and he is recruiting new members in the United States and promoting himself. This is where we get a lot of sort of this media that I want to show you. And he does this interview.
This gentleman is Mr. Sun Myung Moon, who is traveling around the world calling for the establishment of one world religion and one church. Seated next to him is his interpreter, David Kim. Mr. Moon speaks only Korean. Will you explain to Mr. Moon that if I take a merry, light-hearted approach to him, it's not out of disrespect, because in civilian life, I'm a part-time humorist. According to your remarkable biography, at the age of 16, on Easter Sunday, you had a conversation with Jesus.
Yes,
Lol.
we did.
You weren't with him, Mr. Kim, at the time.
No, I was not there.
Well, then did
Okay, that
Jesus
blends
speak a
it-ish.
good Korean? Did it have a Hebrew accent?
He speaks good Korean.
한국말로 했다고? 한국말로? In Korean, they conversed.
At present, Mr. Moon is regarded as a messiah. There are, by my researches, 27 working messiahs roaming the world right now, and that doesn't include John, Yoko, and Lennon. Or John Lennon and Yoko. I get my messiahs all mixed up. It says God speaks today, and there's a picture of Mr. Moon. Now, it's $18 to hear the word of God through Mr. Moon, and I'm sure it's worth every nickel of it. But you can hear the word of God spoken for free by priests, ministers,
Hi,
and
puppy.
rabbis all throughout the earth.
사회에서 보게 될
Hey
때
there,
목사 혹은
doggy.
신자게 되면 이 숭배하고 하나님이 죽었다고 하는 이 실정에 있어서 거저해 좀 가치를 모르는 거예요. 그래서
Hey, Baba, still eating. There you
가치를
go.
인정시키기 위해서는 높게 가져야 돼.
What should go in the last room here? And then also I need something to go here.
Don't mess around with the messiah.
He put this price because religious authority is sinking down, and even believers of so-called Christianity give the idea of a valuable message, and
People respect
giving
it.
them.
It's paid for.
Yeah.
So that's if you put a Cadillac price on it, people respect it. We'll be back. We'll be right back now. Was Jesus a black man? Was he a brown man? Was he a white?
These people 같은 형태로 나타나고. He appears just like a form of a Jewish people style.
I see. Out of him shines the most enormous good nature. And I must tell you that if this is the Messiah I want him something like this.
He's even making public speeches and documentaries about his speeches.
In 1974, Reverend Moon proclaimed the exciting message of God's hope for mankind.
Stop.
From their
Not the
headquarters
50s
here in
propaganda.
Nevada, members of the Unification Church International eagerly participate in a special campaign to clean up a very dirty New York City. Throughout the city, public rallies and parades generate tremendous excitement and herald the upcoming festival.
May I present the Reverend Sun Myung Moon. The people of America.
The stars look like a hidden Mickey. Oh my god, I see it, yeah. That's funny. I'll have this be like a little coffee spot. How about?
Of immorality and depravity. In the sight of God, there is no black, there is no white, there is no yellow. America must return to Godism.
To Godism? What?
One world under God.
Actually, no, let's just do this.
Why has Reverend Moon come to America? 미국이라는 나라는 내가 사랑하는 하나님께서 지극히 사랑하시는 나라이기 때문에. Because this is the country which God, our Heavenly Father, has chosen. We will build it with our hands.
Right.
Let us unite and together build the kingdom of God right here on earth.
At this time, the way that Moon is making his money is through donations, and he would get these donations largely from his Japanese followers, because there was a history between Korea and Japan where Japan used to rule over Korea, and there were a lot of atrocities committed during this time. And so he, quote unquote, preyed on Japanese guilt, is what I kept seeing online, by telling these Japanese followers of his that they had to give him large sums of money to basically free their ancestors from purgatory, that their ancestors wanted them to give money to him, the true father,
Convenient.
the Korean leader, to atone for their sins that they committed. And that if they didn't give money to true father and the Unification Church, as it was known, they would basically torture their ancestors in the afterlife. Also, he would have his followers that were in the States, the young people that he would recruit, go around and sell little trinkets and things and tell people they're from a youth group and whatever and sell things. Then he would take that money and parlay it into businesses where he built this insane empire. And this is when he eventually will become a billionaire, okay? He was really good at business, truly. And he's actually even credited with bringing sushi to the United States. Moon declared himself king of the ocean, and he had this vision, and it actually did kind of come to be, where he's like, we're going to build the ships, and we're going to use the ships to fish, and then we're going to take that fish, and we're going to build markets, and we're going to distribute the fish, and I'm going to be king of the ocean in the world. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, I don't know about the king of the ocean in the world, but he has this market, True World Foods. It still exists today, seafood market, and he built the ships and owns like a ship manufacturing company, and he's actually credited with bringing sushi to the United States, because he supplied fish to like most of the sushi restaurants at the time. And then he also owned media companies. He had a TV network, he had a recording studio, and he even owned a newspaper. This newspaper was called the Washington Times, and actually it is said that Ronald Reagan used to read this newspaper every day. It was like a conservative newspaper in Washington. I found this video, old C-SPAN video, where Bush talks about reading the Washington Times.
When I think of the Washington Times, I think of a publication that has brought much needed balance to the way Washington is covered these days.
I established the Washington Times to fulfill God's desperate desire to save this world. And the free sex is centered on Seneca. The world literature and media have often stimulated the free sex. Free sex should completely disappear. What is the difference between men and women? Just truth. A woman's sexual organs are shaped as concave and convex. Why are they shaped that way?
Side eye.
Nobody can oppose me. Oppose me. Talking liberal, talking content, there. Wow. What's that? Oh, sweet cherry. And then his holdings. His real estate holdings are insane. He has mansions all over. And then he also has like hotel. He owns a hotel. He owns a Manhattan Center. Like, he owns a lot of things. One of the groups that he has is called Ton Gil Group, and it owns a lot of businesses in Korea and in the U.S. And Ton Gil Group is being run by one of his sons, and his son, his name is Justin. He also owns a gun manufacturing company known as Car Arms. Remember how I told you that Moon's son would start his own cult? Okay, that's the youngest son. His name is Sean. Sean started a gun cult where they like basically worship AR-15s, and he's doing this in collaborating with his brother, who owns Car Arms that manufactures AR-15s. I'll get into that a little bit more in depth later, the whole gun cult thing.
What the hell?
Back to the timeline. we're in the 70s. Moon is anti-communist, really anti-communist. And at this time, right, 70s and 60s, that's like a hot topic. He's also using his money to influence politics. This is kind of where he starts getting himself into a little bit of trouble. It is alleged that he had women, his young female followers, sort of plant themselves into the offices of politicians to get information and report back to him. And remember, I told you, BHP, his loyal follower, who was part of the KCIA, the Korean CIA, okay? He is basically accused of spying on the U.S. to report back to the Korean CIA. And there ends up being an investigation into this in Congress in 1976. They say that Moon is masquerading as this religious leader, but really he's a spy. And he is a political tool for Korea, and they don't like it. They say that his church is a cover, and they start saying that he's also committing crimes, including tax evasion and conspiracy and things like that. So Moon is really upset about this, and he tries to sue the chair of the committee that's investigating him for $30 million. Well, that suit ends up getting dismissed, and this creates a negative image of Moon in the media at the time. He starts being known as Loony Mooney, and that's where the whole Mooney name comes from, where they call this cult the Moonies, because they're officially like the Unification Church, and he is like true father, and his wife is true mother, but now they're known as the Moonies. So now it's 1977, and Moon feels like he's being attacked by the United States, and he's trying to like fight back, but you know, he doesn't want to leave the US just yet because he's making a lot of money. And so there's this one speech that he gives on the 23rd anniversary of the church, and it's in 1977, and I want to read you some quotes from this. In this country, women have a commanding voice at home. In a typical American home, the wife is the master of the house, while the husband is like a servant. His shoulders are hunched over, and he's always checking to see what his wife's mood is. When I was matching couples for the blessing, I asked the Western men what nationality they would like their wives to be. 99% of them asked for Oriental women. I am sure it was very embarrassing for the Western sisters to hear that all the men wanted to marry Oriental women. It would not be easy for most of you American women to have an Oriental husband because most of them are shorter than you are. God gave women the privilege of always looking up to their husbands. They should not look down on men. That is the principle.
That's so funny.
God actually made women shorter than men for the sake of women. If women were taller than men, then throughout history their lives would have been even more miserable because they would have to do all the reaching for high things.
J-Cam about him.
He says, in looking at what America has done to me, my personal reaction is sometimes an intense desire to get revenge. I even sometimes feel that this nation cannot be forgiven. I did not come here to take direction from the State Department or to win the little green card that permits me to live in this country. I have absolutely no inclination to stay in this country. I'm only here because of the mandate of God. Put yourself in my position. Look at what the media has done in the last 3.5 years, portraying me as a monster. From that point of view, this nation has committed unforgivable acts.
The horror.
Yet, if I were to leave, this country would be miserable. If white America fails to respond, then God will raise up another people or another nation that will come against the white people of America. On the other hand, however, since primarily white people are denouncing me, God can send more young white people to us, and in the future, more white people will rise up in my defense. That is the way God will work.
What?
The Unification Church is a school far greater than Harvard or Yale or Princeton, and is a place where only the elite of the universe can enroll. Those who can come to the Unification Church have to be special. You cannot join unless you have received special revelation from God. That is why I say that this is really a gathering of the elite. You have heard before about your 7-year course, but you did not feel it to the bone. Those who can say they are already committed to it, please raise your hands. Have you prayed? God, at this moment, I pledge to you that I will begin my 7-year course. I shall no longer follow the course of Adam and Eve, who failed, but within 7 years' time, I shall finish the path of perfected Adam and Eve. God, trust me. The best way for you to safely journey through this period is to put yourself down on the lowest possible level, where you can even envy the beggars, where even sitting down at a table to eat becomes a luxury. For 7 years in the Unification Church, you will be crazy about fulfilling your mission, forgetting about eating, sleeping, and everything else. Through all of that, you must be absolutely obedient. So this is why people were calling him Looney Moon. Stuff like this. He was getting followers, though, and people were joining. And a lot of the techniques that were used in this cult were things like love bombing and creating community and giving people a sense of belonging and validation. That was the beginning. And then once people really were emotionally attached to the people in the group and stuff like that, they would then slowly deprive them of sleep and food and give them quotas of money to make and control aspects of their life. And that's kind of where it went to a dark place.
Hey there, puppy.
And so in the 70s and 80s, you had a lot of this anti-cult movement where they were deprogrammers, and parents would, according to Moon, come and kidnap their kids from him and try to deprogram them. And this was happening a lot. And there was even one guy, his name is Steve Hassan, and he was an ex-member.
And everyone was smiling and sincere and warm. And I was just like not getting that this was a cult, this is how they operate. The deprogrammers were making comparisons with Hitler and Moon. And I said,
I don't care if Moon is like Hitler. I've chosen to follow him, and I'll follow him to the end.
They would say you have to look 3 inches into people's eyes, like this. Hi there. How are you?
Stop. When people left and started talking about the things that happened there, they talked about the slapping therapy and the ansu, and they talked about the suicide training, how there were certain teachings that said that it was better for you to kill yourself and make it look like a murder if you were taken by a deprogrammer and could not escape. Like, this is one quote. Someone says, the best thing would be to throw ourselves in front of the deprogrammer's car because then he'd be charged with murder. Second, depending on how much time we have, we were told to slice either our wrist or our jugular vein. So now it's 1982 and shit is about to hit the fan. Moon has this huge public mass wedding ceremony where it's in Madison Square Garden. 2,000 couples were married. And things on the outside seem great, but behind the scenes, things are falling apart. He'd been charged with tax evasion, and that was about to come to a head. On top of that, his children were out of control. Moon's eldest son,
I'm trying to think something that will fit under this fucking thing.
Steve was a problem child. He got expelled from middle school. He was shooting a BB gun at the other students, and he got really into drugs.
Oh yeah,
and
that'll do that.
And then Moon's daughter, Anjin, when she was 16 years old, sort of started hanging out with Steve, her older brother, and they were partying together. Moon started to worry, and instead of blaming himself or his wife for their complete lack of discipline, he blamed America. He was like, see, this is the problem, it's corrupting them, they need to get married.
It's our fault.
That was his solution. So he arranges marriages for his daughter and his son. He chooses a 15-year-old girl called Nan Suk Hong, and he's like, okay, she's gonna marry my son. And then for his daughter, remember BHP, his friend who was harboring his secret son, who was with the KCIA living in the US?
Don't say it's his son.
He chose his son,
James,
to marry his daughter. But guess what? Turns out, allegedly, the daughter, Injin, she actually had a crush on Sammy Park, her half-brother that she didn't know was her half-brother, because they would go hang out there. Their parents were friends. And so she wanted to actually marry him when she found out that the dad was arranging this. But the dad was like, no, he didn't tell her, but I'm sure he was like, that's your brother. And so he ends up, matching her to James. Now, the unofficial story, and this is from the person that I know, they told me that, and they remember they were in the church, they say that there was some sort of SA thing that happened, allegedly that James SA'd her, and that the father's response was to marry her to the person who SA'd her. I really hope that's not true. Later on, Injun would actually say that she felt like this
unfortunately wouldn't be surprised if that was the
case. She felt like she was R-worded by the marriage. And
I mean,
it doesn't go well for either of them, those marriages. Not at all. But before the marriages fell apart, something else happened.
Do I have any loaves of bread? Come on.
17-year-old son dies in a car crash.
I'm just gonna go take that loaf of bread.
He ends up being found guilty of the tax evasion charges, and he is sentenced to 18 months in prison. And so there's this mugshot. I even found this picture of him when he was in prison. And in 1985, though, he is released from prison. Remember the eldest son, Steve, the problem child? Well, at this point, he's a raging cokehead, alcoholic, whatever else. And he gives this sermon where he is kind of off the rails.
I'm standing here being judged by you now. What do you judge me by? Huh?
Calm down, buddy.
Respect me.
Dude.
Jesus Christ, life sucked today. Okay, please stand up.
Buddy. Yeesh.
Okay, over there.
He's married to Nansuk at this time. Remember, he married her when she was 15 in 82. Now it's like the mid-90s, and they have 4 kids, and she's pregnant with the 5th, and he is about to beat her so bad that she almost lost the baby. She claims that he was doing coke, and she walked in on him, and she was 7 months pregnant, and she was fed up, and she decides to flush the coke down the toilet. Well, this sends Steve,
I mean, I get it, but not a good idea.
She says that, quote, he smashed his fist into my face, bloodying my nose. He wiped my blood on his hand, then licked it off. Tastes good, he said. This is fun. She was done. She takes the kids and she leaves, and she starts writing a tell-all book. The book, by the way, is called In the Shadow of the Moons. She does an interview with 60 Minutes with Injun, the sister I told you about that was allegedly R-worded, SA'd. In this interview, they allege that Steve abused Nansuk and James abused Injun, like their husbands, and that they were both adulterers and drug users, and that their father was too. Like Moon was an adulterer, and that's when they mentioned publicly the secret son.
Reverend has at least one illegitimate son. Moon's daughter confirmed that.
And I know, yes.
You know the child?
Baby.
Yes, his name is Sammy.
It was a bombshell. Moon was afraid that they would come out, right? Annie and her son Sam, and say, yeah, like, I'm the secret son, it's all true, and just completely ruin everything, because he preached that adultery was the worst thing you could do, and now he's going to be exposed as an adulterer himself. This would just be
doggies.
He's already just come out of prison. So he ends up with BHP presenting a contract to Annie and her son Sam, basically telling them not to talk about it and not to make any claims on inheritance, that they're going to get a lump sum of like $1.5 million each. And then later on, if Sam, because he's supposed to be BHP's son, you know, that's what they're pretending, if later on in life he doesn't get a high position in one of the companies as BHP's son, then he'll get $20 million. This was verbal. This wasn't part of the written contract. So they agree, they sign, they get their lump sums of $1.5 million, and they don't say anything. So then, a year after this interview with 60 Minutes, there's another tragedy in the family, and that is when one of Moon's sons dies. And
How?
what happened is contested because officially it was ruled an unaliving. He basically jumped, is the official story, from the 17th floor of Harrah's Casino in Reno, Nevada, and died.
Right.
At the time when this happened, friends and family of the son did not believe that he ended his life. They said that he was 21 years old, he was just about to start studying, he had plans, he seemed happy, and they think that the whole thing is suspicious.
Yeah, you don't
People
say.
did come out and say that he had some issues where he felt trapped in the marriage that his father had arranged for him. And maybe that was the cause. And then other people said it wasn't actually that bad. There still are doubts to this day. But officially, he ended his own life. What this created was a problem because, remember, true father and true mother are creators of this perfect, sinless bloodline. And the bloodline isn't looking so perfect and sinless. So Moon decides to say, no. It's not my fault. I'm not the sinner. My children are not the sinners. It's America. America is Satan's playground. This is the problem. It's a satanic
Our
country.
fault again, of course.
Ruining my children.
How dare you,
When he would rail
chat?
against the United States and stuff, some Americans agreed with him. Around this time, he decides he needs to widen his recruiting pool, and he starts focusing on Black Americans. He goes on a very strategic tour where he goes to 50 cities and he goes to Black churches and places like that, and he starts giving speech, trying to convince them of his teachings and ask them to join. And it doesn't go over well. I want to read you an article. This was in 2001. It says, the Korean-born religious leader told the audience that homosexuals, childless couples, and people's misuse of their love organs are destroying society. The head of the male, the love organ, is shaped exactly like a poisonous rattlesnake, he said. And just like a rattlesnake, it's always looking for a hole. If you misuse your love organ, you destroy your life, your nation, your world.
Amazing.
Moon added that 70% of divorces are the fault of the women, primarily because they believe ownership of their love organ is for themselves and not under the hand of their husband. Some members of the audience, which was largely composed of Black Christians and Muslims, walked out during the speech. One woman yelled that Moon was a liar when he said people needed the blessing of his lineage to enter heaven, because he is free from original sin. He was, as the kids today like to say, delulu. Okay, he was delusional because he made this announcement and he said, by February 2013, all of humanity would be under one global nation that he ruled, of course, and this global nation is called Chun Il-guk. He decides to go back to Korea and prepare for this global nation. And he ends up building a castle that actually looked like the United States Capitol building. He makes his own police force, his own national anthem. His own flag. So now it's 2004, and some really weird shit happened. He gets crowned in a United States Senate building, surrounded by religious leaders and politicians who kneel
Crowned
and
for
bow.
what?
I don't know if they knelt, but they bowed, and they crowned him.
Senators and congressmen and representatives of all the families of the world.
For what reason?
You don't bow and crown somebody in an American government building, bitch. It's a democracy. Okay, I just got really crazy. I found only one video of it. It was so blurry. I was just like, but I did find pictures and articles of New York Times talked about it. Apparently, it was like this big secret, and then it was revealed, and it was like this crazy ass shit that went down. Anyway, that happened in 2004. Now it goes from weird to scandalous because remember the daughter I told you about, Anjin? Okay, she's about to have a huge ass scandal that's going to happen. And in 2004, she starts an affair with the keyboard player. He was also a member of the church, and he played in this band, and she starts an affair with him. His name is Alistair Ferrant, okay? Remember that.
Okay.
Now we are going to jump to 2008, because in 2008, several things happened. Remember Steve, the cokehead eldest son? Okay, he dies of a heart attack. So after his eldest son dies, Moon publicly says that his youngest son, this is the one who's going to create the gun cult, by the way, his youngest son, Sean, is supposed to take over the religious affairs in the church in Korea, the Unification Church. So he gives it to his son. When he dies, obviously, his son will take it. The same year that he does this announcement, he gets into a helicopter accident in Korea with his wife, and although they both survive, for a moment there, they were feared dead. And so during this time, the children start fighting over the Unification Church in America. It was the only asset left that Moon hadn't designated to a child. And so this crazy story comes out where like all of the younger ones turned on the older one because the older one said, well, I'm the eldest. His name was Preston. They basically staged this coup, essentially, when the eldest son is out of the country. Write this memo where the daughter, she goes into the boardroom and she pressures the members of the board to resign, and then she replaces them with people that are loyal to her, and then they vote and they make
it's like
her
a K-drama.
The church.
What the hell?
Parents end up surviving though, right? True mother and true father. They end up surviving, and so they're in Korea. They're fine. Meanwhile, the daughter is in charge of the church in America, and she does this major rebrand. She changes the church name from Unification Church to Love and Life. She creates a band for the church called Sonic Cult.
What?
And guess who's in the band playing keyboards? The guy she's having an affair with, Alistair. But guess what? She ends up hiring this Norwegian guy named Ben to be the lead singer of the band. And she ends up having an affair with him too. God. And she's basically having an affair with two
Keep
members
it in your
of
pants.
this band,
My God.
Right? And then there's a story that happens where they end up finding out about each other in this hotel room, and they get into a fight, like a physical fight, and she ends up choosing the new guy, Ben, over the other guy, and the other guy, his life is ruined, like his wife found out, and everything's bad, and he lost everything, and she dropped him, and now she's with this other guy, Ben. In 2009, Ben's wife actually finds out about the affair. And she goes on his laptop, and she sees a bunch of explicit emails, she said, from Engine on the laptop.
Here.
So the wife, she responds to these emails.
I'll put like an information desk right here.
Messaging Engine back, being like, I'm his wife, and basically she confronts her. She says after she sent that email, her husband Ben and this other guy, they come over to her and they basically tell her like, you need to leave and take the baby and go away and drop this and do all, like they basically like bullied her into just like going away and being quiet, but she didn't. She went to a church official and told them. Engine's husband, James, actually defended her to the church official, being like, no, that woman is crazy and jealous, like you can't believe her. My wife is not having an affair with her husband, like that's crazy. Turns out they apparently had this open marriage or something, I don't know, but he knew about this affair, and he would actually cover for her even in this second scandal that happens, because guess what? At this time in 2009, there is a blog, it's a Tumblr page called How Well Do You Know Your Moon? And it is created in 2009. And it's created by what's known as a second gen. Second gen are Moonies who were born into the group, the cult, the church, whatever. They're born into it, right? First gen chose to be in it. Second gen, born into it. Usually their parents were matched and married in a mass ceremony, and the second gen are their kids. So he was gay, and that's against the church's teachings, and he gets sent
How dare you be gay?
to, I think it's called, I'm going to mess up the name, I was trying to practice it earlier, I think it's called like Chungpyeong. He gets sent to this center or something, church affiliated place in Korea where they basically sort of like beat the evil spirits out of you, and you have to do like really tough like boot camp things and wake up early and read the thing. It's like really like a boot camp for the church for troubled kids, let's say. And so he gets sent there after he comes out as gay, and he talks about this Ansu ritual where he's beaten, and it's awful. And he said that was like a turning point for him. So he leaves there. When he gets home, he says he finds out about Ansu's book, the expose, and he's looking online. He finds out about all these rituals from the early days, from ex-members talking about it, and that's when he started his blog, talking about like the dark side of the Moonies, if you will. This is going to factor in because he's going to end up exposing a huge scandal that's going to change a lot of shit with this church. A year before that happens, in 2011, the youngest son of Moon, the one who would end up starting the gun cult, he actually sues his mom, Hak Ja Han. He sues his mom, claiming that she siphoned money from one of his companies that he's in charge of, $23 million, and illegally put it into a foundation that she runs of the church, and he's suing her in Korean court, saying she needs to give the money back. This is the beginning of their battles. A year later, this is where everything goes to shit, because Injin, who's running this Love and Life church in the States and doing all that, she just vanishes. 2012, disappears. All of a sudden, nobody sees her, and they were like, where is she? Where is she? No answer. The Tumblr page is talking about this. No answer. Then, also in 2012, Sun Myung
We did it.
dies.
We finished.
On September 2nd, he dies of pneumonia.
Save.
He's like 92. And they have the funeral. It's a huge deal. Everyone is there except for his daughter, the one that's been missing. When the daughter didn't show up to the funeral, everyone was like, okay, where is she?
Child's Play.
And then, a week after the funeral, the How Well Do You Know Your Moon Tumblr page posted a bombshell post where they had a birth certificate that showed that Injin had given birth to a baby, and the father on the birth certificate was Ben, the lead singer of the band, and it was a huge scandal. The birth certificate showed that the baby was born on May 1st, 2012. It explained why she wasn't there and no one saw her for months is she was hiding a pregnancy. And the reason why she hid the pregnancy and couldn't pass it off as a baby with her husband, James, was because James was Korean, and the guy she had a baby with was Norwegian, and so
it'd be fun to visit. I would definitely go there.
And so she felt like
oh
she
my
had
god,
to keep
we
the
got
whole
our
entire
first
thing a secret,
building
but
finished,
somehow
chat.
The birth certificate
I'm so proud of us.
But when this happened,
we have a park.
This is when
we have retail. We have apartments.
Really
cafe.
Takes over everything because her husband is dead.
I'm gonna swap back
she is
to just this for now because we're almost done.
Sued her a year before.
Oh my
And
god!
now her daughter has got this scandal where she had an affair and a baby from the affair.
Fun.
Okay, so what does she do? She tells her daughter, "You have to resign." And
so what should I wear for the next stream? I haven't decided yet.
Then she sends a memo to the church in Korea, which was promised by True Father Moon, okay, to his son, the youngest one, Sean, who sued her. Okay, she takes it from him, and she sends this memo to the church where she says that, you know, his last dying wish was for me to take everything.
What should I wear for the next stream? I said.
Recording his voice and saying these things in this memo, and then she says basically that, like, from now on, everything is going to be centered on True Mother, and she basically just takes the church from her youngest son, Sean, and now she has the church in America too, which she took from her daughter. She even took some of the businesses from her other sons, and it was like, holy shit, she went from that 17-year-old illegitimate child who Moon took and like locked in the room to now she is the leader of this billion-dollar empire. But her kids were not happy
I don't
with her,
own that many orange clothes.
Sean, right? Because Sean was like, she's like a usurper and a whore of Babylon. A year after this all goes down, guess who comes out of hiding?
I am the secret son or love child. The circumstances surrounding my birth
Bruh.
led me for a large majority of my life to a life committed in the shadows.
I do goth.
The youngest son, Sean, starts his own
I do
church.
goth for Christmas
Okay, this is the gun
every year,
cult
pretty
that
much.
I keep referring to, but it wasn't a gun cult at first. It
I don't
started
have
out
butt
as,
flap PJs.
It's called the Sanctuary Church.
Who the fuck
This was
has
in
those?
2013, and it was largely based on his father's teachings that his father is the Messiah, and he was considering himself like the Pope. He took some of the followers with him after his mom took over that were loyal to him.
People whose favorite color is orange are always
around
very interesting.
2017, he does a rebrand, and this really does serve him well. He changes his church name from Sanctuary Church to the Rod of Iron Ministries.
That's why it is a human right in the kingdom to have the rod of iron.
And he has this sort of, revelation that the rod of iron that is mentioned in the Bible is actually an AR-15. And he quotes passages like, you will break them with a rod of iron, you will dash them to pieces like pottery, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he's saying that this is actually an AR-15 that the Bible is talking about. There was the school shooting that happened in Parkland, and that is when he really gets on the map, because just a few days after that
What does he have to say about that?
he has a ceremony where it's a blessing ceremony.
I don't want to do like a full cosplay. I was more of just like thinking like an outfit.
But he had all the followers bring their AR rifles and bless the rifles, and a nearby elementary school.
I know,
had to
right? I love her
evacuate,
channel.
and
It's
so
great.
The news was all over the story.
What or who has raised so many eyebrows at Lake Limestone and beyond?
Person who is in Christ is greater than any superhero you see on the silver screen. That means the movies.
Meet the Reverend Sean Mooney, youngest son of the founder of the Unification Church.
Christians say I'm a cult leader, and they say you're a cult member.
No, I need it to be
Well, they said that
something
about
more
Jesus Christ, too.
lewd, I think.
As this video from the Associated Press shows,
I don't know what
those
it's gonna
folks
be.
love them some guns.
We believe that everybody, especially Christian, should have an AR-15. In our church, we believe that he is the returning Jesus. So he anointed me as his heir successor. Doesn't mean I'm the Messiah, no, but I would be something like the Pope.
And so they get a lot of followers because there were a lot of people who were supporting this idea. And so he ends up moving. He buys this huge, like several acre property, and it's in a very gun-friendly area. And the laws and everything are very, very gun-friendly. He has a crown made of ammo and a golden AR, and all his followers are wearing these ammo crowns and these ARs. And he starts doing what his father did too, where he aligns himself politically with people who have the same beliefs. So he starts becoming.
I know, I really like them. I want something that I can
sort of like
easily strip in because we're gonna be doing more of a lewd stream. So
and remember, his brother owns Car Arms that manufactures AR-15s, and they're next to each other. So,
which I'm really hoping I have energy for.
About his beliefs, like Rod Iron Ministries beliefs, and he had the book signing at his brother's gun store. So the people who came to the book signing,
like the plan is for just me to hang out with you guys, and we'll listen to music and all,
tax-free, like huge amounts of money that he got
dance and stuff
from selling the guns to his brother as like, a member of the
But I don't have a
congregation.
green screen,
so
though.
it's like they had this team going, and it seemed to work.
No,
for
but I
both
should
of
have
them.
another cup of
And
coffee.
then
I'll
he
probably
had,
make
like,
a cup of
scandal
coffee.
because apparently he was at the Capitol building.
No,
on January 6th,
it needs
but
to
that's
be
a
more
little bit
layers
fuzzy.
than that.
He denies it. He was like, no,
I'll probably just
I'm
do something with a few
saying,
layers.
But then there's videos of him. I guess he got tear
Maybe I'll put like
gassed.
shorts and something, shorts and some type of top, and then I'll put like a dress or something over it. That way there's multiple
there was
layers.
Another huge thing that happened.
Make you work
and this
for
has
it.
to do with the Japanese members. They got so much money from them. There was this scandal that broke out in 2022 where it was revealed that like between $6 and $10 million that came from Japanese members were used by
as soon as this video is over, I'm ending the stream, okay?
Officials to gamble
Because I only have 10 minutes till the next stream. I have to go get changed. I'll probably be late.
Against Vegas.
Just warning you, I'm probably gonna be late to the next stream.
Like, this is Satan City, and
But I'll put up the
meanwhile, they were
music, so
gambling with their donations in Vegas while they claimed that Vegas was evil. So when this came out, it was another huge scandal, and the Japanese members were pissed. So pissed that one son of a woman who was part of this church in Japan ended up assassinating Japanese Prime Minister
Yeah,
Shinzo
oh my god.
Abe.
I was gonna say,
Well,
is
turns
that
out that he's affiliated with Unification Church. He
Oh
was
my
paid by
God.
them to do an appearance, and the political party has long-standing ties with the church, and he was caught, and he admitted to the shooting, and he said straight up, like, I wanted to shoot True Mother, like Hak Ja Han, but I couldn't get close enough to her. So I did a homemade gun, and then I went, the day before I assassinated the Prime Minister in Japan, I went to the Unification Church in Japan, and I shot at the church. The next day I went and I did the assassination, and it's because my
Really?
mom gave all our money to the church, ruined our lives. Apparently he went to a really good school, got really good grades, but couldn't afford to even go to college, even though he got accepted and stuff, because his family had no money, because the church, they gave all the money to the church, and he feels like it's the church's fault that he's in this situation. That resulted in the Japanese government,
Damn.
like the people who are associated with the Unification Church, completely tried to disassociate with the church, from the church, sorry, and then went after them in these investigations. And apparently now they're trying to dissolve the church in Japan. So we'll see what happens with that. But that is basically the story of.
I think I have an outfit in my head, and it's gonna be black, so we can do like it's a Black
Anyway,
Friday
thank you guys so
outfit.
much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.
Thank you, thank you. All right, and I will see you guys in my next one, aka in a few minutes over on Fansly, where I will wear the new outfit and be lewd. Yay! All right, I will see you guys in just a bit. If I don't see you at the next stream, I'll see you on Monday, where we will start. We'll go over what I didn't complete last month, aka this month. We'll go over that. I don't know. I have the cleaners coming on Monday, so I don't know if I will be streaming. I'll probably have to adjust the stream time for later in the day. Just warning you. But that'll be over on Fansly. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on here next Friday. Okay? And we will be doing December stuff, so probably doing merch or something like that, alright? Yee, or if we do Sims, we'll do a Christmas build. We'll build Santa's house, Father Winter's house, maybe. We'll either do that or we'll do merch or something, alright? Alright, enjoy the outro. Mwah. See you in a sec.